I want to welcome you to the Tuesday, June 5th, 2018 Placer County Board of Supervisors meeting. We will begin with the flag salute led by, it looks like I'm going to do it. Please join me in saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first item this morning is a roll call. All items on the consent agenda, which will be approved by a roll call. All items on the consent agenda have been recommended for approval by the County Executive Department. All items will be approved by a single roll call vote. Anyone may ask to address consent items prior to the board taking action, and the item may be moved for discussion. Are there any items from board members that want to be removed? Anybody in the audience have any issues that they want to take off for discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for approval. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Duran?
Yes.
Wygant?
Yes.
Euler? Holmes?
Aye. I just wanted to make a comment that Supervisor Montgomery won't be with us today. She's enjoying some vacation time. So now is the time for public comment. Persons may address the Board of Supervisors on items not on this agenda. Please limit comments to 3 minutes per person, since the time allocated for public comment is 15 minutes. If all comments cannot be heard within the 15-minute time limit, the public comment period will be taken up at the end of the regular session. The board is not permitted to take any action on items addressed under public comment. So now I'll open it up. We're going to hold it to 15 minutes this time. Whoa. No, after you. Yes, first. Morning.
Good morning. I just had a very interesting discussion with Jeff, and it was interesting because we agree on a lot of issues as long as we can do it civilly. Okay, is the key
word.
Word.
We need your name, please.
Yes, thank you. My name is Peter Colster. I live in 2549 Gale Lane in Auburn. And I just want to say to you, thank you very much, Chairman, for listening to us, and members of the Board of Supervisors, County Executive, and County Council for taking the time to take our information. My first request is that as any speaker today state their name and address, as you need to know if they are residents of Placer County and are your constituents, so that you know who you're talking to. As I noted before, this issue is squarely in the hands of Congress, who have failed time and time again to pass an immigration bill that will address the various components of immigration. Immigration is a complex system that should provide for a fair and just system that should address not only the process for applying for immigrant status, but also the issue of refugee status, asylum process, and the various visa programs. It is hard to believe that the Republicans have control of all three branches of government, and you would think that they would have made this a priority, as the present administration is surely not helping matters by separating children from their mothers, which is inhumane and does not represent the values of this nation. In addition, Governor Brown signed the California Values Act, SB 54, that will protect the safety and well-being of all Californians, excuse me, by ensuring that state and local resources are not used for mass deportation, separation of families, or terrorizing communities. SB 54 provides essential safeguards to ensure that the police, schools, health facilities, courts, and the California Division of Labor remain accessible to Californians from all walks of life, and that California's limited resources are directed to matters of greatest concern to state and local government. The mission statement of Placer County Sheriff's Office is to maintain the quality of life we enjoy to ensure our county is a safe place to live, work, and visit. Thank you for your time, as I'm opposed to the anti-sanctuary resolution.
We didn't get your where you live in Placer County?
Yes, 2549 Gale Lane in Auburn.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Bradley Cutler representing Tree Lake Village and the absent Scott Vaughn. And we're here again today for our 10th consecutive BOS hearing to correct the record and advocate for open and honest government. Unfortunately, there was no video posted from the last meeting. I guess there must have been a problem, or should you expect us to just follow a PRA and then the usual lawsuit in order to get it? Just kidding. You may recall last meeting, Supervisor Euler said he'd sent us a response regarding our outstanding open space issue and the complaint. And it appears that the CDRA is no longer recognizing this law passed by your predecessors in the 80s and 90s, and which it mandated that about 15% of our area be open space to ensure our community has a great quality of life. There's less than that allowable space remaining in 1996, and the CDRA has refused requests to recalculate that open space. So we once again ask you if you're going to fulfill your promise, Mr. Euler, to us to comply with the law and calculate our remaining open space. Contrary to your statement that you sent it to us, we have yet to receive a single correspondence from the project and try and have a communication with you about it. It appears there's some selective enforcement going on here. Another item that has been languishing is my formal complaint to the BOS regarding the business license. Your attorneys responded to our attorney's complaint, but I have yet to receive an answer from my complaint that was filed before then that asked, that followed the rules for filing and indicated I would receive an immediate hearing as a response. I have yet to get even an acknowledgement of the complaint, let alone any hearing or an answer. A point of correction from last meeting involves another statement that Commissioner Moss only violated administrative rules, not laws. We pointed out that the violations, the county codes, are misdemeanors, and further, County Council stated that Commissioner Moss had not been charged with any misdemeanor, and we wanted to thank him for pointing out that oversight, which we repeatedly asked to be corrected. We provided over 20 incidents where the law was broken and have asked for action and gotten and received none. And I thought it was the duty of the County Council to uphold the laws of the county. If the counselor witnesses illegal behavior, should he not report it? If the counselor uncovers false statements, shouldn't he point them out and correct them? If the counselor witnesses fraud, conflicts of interest, violations of county, state, and federal laws, should not he act to defend his county from a constant and repeated assault on its laws from a violator? From our perspective, to not do so is to be complicit.
Supervisor Euler, did you want to make?
Yes, just quickly, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cutler, let me just correct one thing. First of all, in the last board meeting, I never said that I had sent you the open space calculation. I said an email had gone out regarding the open space calculation. I never said that it came from me. I was mistaken, however, that that email was sent to you. When I read it, being that it was in response to a question that you guys had asked, I assumed that the response had gone back to everyone. I did not look at the distribution, and staff pointed out to me, no, their response came to me, did not go back to you. So I apologize for that. That was a misstatement on my part when I said that you had received a response, not from me, I never said you got it from me, but that you had received a response on that.
Correct.
Met with staff this morning. They are in the process of doing the exhaustive open space calculation that you have requested. They assure me that by our next board meeting at the end of June, we will have that open space calculation done.
Progress.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to allow a little extra time for public comment since Supervisor Euler had it. Well, that's fine. Need your name and address, please.
Jeffrey Perrine, address 1734 Meridian Way, Rockland, California. So my issue is SB 54. I have a problem because I keep hearing people talking about this is the Trump administration issue. We shouldn't, act because the president's making it a big deal. This isn't about the president. This is about the state, the city, the county we live in. What's going on around me, I can see changes occurring. I see that the demographics are changing drastically. It's in a hurry. I know that there's a lot of different resources going out to people who who are not necessarily in need of them. I mean, again, I looked for the meeting minutes, the video. I didn't want to give anyone a hard time, but that was something I didn't know what the conclusion was of last board meeting because I couldn't find the video. So I'm back to kind of just, let you guys know that I'm going to keep coming back. It's voting day. So I will be leaving here and going and voting, and I will also be, pressuring my friends and family to do the same. But I just want to let you know that SB 54 is important to me, my friends, and my family. I would really appreciate you guys making the statement. I know you guys act like, well, you don't act like, you say that you don't want to get involved because of the fiscal cost to the county or whatnot. I think it's important because it's going to cost you guys more in the long run. If you guys don't protect yourselves now and get involved and make yourselves be seen as a stronghold, someone who's going to fight against this, you're going to be taken advantage of. I mean, you're surrounded by sanctuary cities. You're surrounded by areas that have allowed for large numbers of illegal aliens to come and congregate, and they're making their way around to other cities. You guys have to be aware of this. I mentioned last time Sacramento. I can't even go to the Capitol and have this type of discussion or even bring it to anything because they laugh you off the microphone. So we have to start somewhere. We've got to start in a conservative area where people still believe in the Constitution. I believe you guys still believe in America. I think you guys believe in law. So I hope, and I pray, that you guys will actually do what your constituents are asking. I'm trying to be as polite as I can and just try to let you guys know how important this is. I'm going to continue to put pressure. I'm going to let everybody know what's going on. I'm going to continue to read and educate myself on these bills. But SB 54 is unconstitutional. I think it's ridiculous that we're expected not to go into a school to find a criminal or a hospital to find a criminal. Someone robbed a bank and he goes to school. You're going to go to the school and get your money back and you're going to arrest him. I just don't see how we're going to say we can pick and choose what laws we're going to follow. You either follow all the laws or you follow none of them. Identity theft is occurring, human trafficking is occurring, drug trafficking is occurring. We need to get these things under control, and allowing an unsequestered amount of illegal immigration to our cities and our surrounding areas is not helping. So again, I'm here to remind you guys how important SB 54 is to me and my friends and family. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning. I'm Scott Johnson. I'm a 5th District resident at 15215 Bancroft Road, Auburn, 95602. Yeah, I support the county's current position on the California Values Act and being in compliance with that California law. That law is in compliance with the Constitution, and the current federal government's immigration policy is not in compliance with the Constitution. I have a couple of copies of the Constitution so that the Fourth Amendment can be reviewed by Supervisors Wygant and Euler, and I have other copies if the other three supervisors would like it. But the Fourth Amendment doesn't say that only American citizens have a right to privacy. It says that all persons have that right, and it says that people can only have their right to privacy violated when there's a probable cause, and the Civil Rights Act guarantees that your ethnic background or the language you speak is not probable cause. And that's why I say I think that the federal government is in violation. You only, for examples of this, have to look to Texas, where Sheriff Arpaio was prosecuted for racial profiling.
Arizona.
And subsequently had his sentence commuted by the president. That's evidence that our federal government and the statements of Jeff Sessions, they're in violation of federal law. But I don't want any of my tax dollars used for racial profiling in this county. And another example is in Texas, in an area where this mass deportation is underway. They've just noticed a 16% drop in reports of domestic violence. And this is being attributed to the fact that people who are experiencing domestic violence are now afraid to report that. And so I don't want that situation here in Placer County. the previous speaker indicated that he doesn't understand the provisions of the California Values Act, and fortunately, our sheriff does. And so thank you again for upholding California law and the California Values Act.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may quickly, since the gentleman did call me, if you have your Constitution with you, Article 1, Section 8, would you mind looking that up? So not one of the Bill of Rights, not the Fourth Amendment, but the actual Constitution, Article 1, Section 8.
Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imports, and excises, to pay debts, and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. This is a long article.
You can just
want the
talk,
entire
just,
thing
just,
read?
just the part where it speaks to that Congress has the authority to establish rules on naturalization. That's all I was getting at.
Okay.
Is the Constitution, especially that part of it, I'm acquainted with. And so when you invite me to familiarize myself with it, I'm
It's
familiar.
the Fourth Amendment that I particularly
I
wanted to
understand.
review.
What I'm
we need to-
saying is that in regard to our duty, and this is all I've ever said, when we take an oath, we take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. The Constitution of the United States clearly speaks to the issue of naturalization and rules surrounding it. The Constitution of California, not the law, not SB 54. The Constitution of California is silent on the issue because it recognizes the supremacy of the United States Constitution on the issue, that the United States Constitution establishes Congress as the appropriate authority for those laws regarding naturalization. Article 1, Section 8 is what establishes that. So when you stand up here and invite me to read the Constitution, I'm familiar with it. We might have a difference of interpretation in terms of what has supremacy on this issue, but I'm familiar with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on, Mr. Mitchell's back there. That's going to be our last speaker. So all of you that are in line up to Mr. Mitchell will be allowed to speak. Thank you. And then if we have to, we can come after our board meeting. You can come back. No, sir, you'll be able to speak.
I'll be able to speak.
Oh, yeah, everybody in line up to Mr. Mitchell, okay? Okay, please proceed.
Okay. My name is Jean Solnadal, and I'm running for Congress in District 13. I live in Oakland.
Yes.
Do you need an exact address?
Okay, that's close enough.
Okay. We all know that SB 54 is illegal. It's not a constitutional law by the state, and we do know that Congress does have the right to act on naturalization and immigration laws. And I'm here to oppose the SB 54, and I'm asking you to opt out and become a sanctuary city. Actually, a county. I want you to become an actual sanctuary county. And I want to share with you something that happened yesterday. I was out talking to my constituents to get votes, and I actually ran across a man that was from Guatemala. And he came here 20 years ago. He came here illegally. And he was escaping, I guess you would actually call him a refugee. He was had incurred such extreme circumstances in Guatemala that he had to come here with his family. And over the course of the years, he became a U.S. citizen. And he was telling me that he was a Republican now and he was against sanctuary state because he knows that these illegal criminals that we are letting loose into society are dangerous criminals. The things that they do that happened to him when he was in Guatemala, these people just are really bad people. And so when you let these people free out of your jails, they're not just little criminals like you're thinking U.S. criminals are. They're not little robbers. They're not people that just go steal and murder. These are like MS-13 people. These are terrible, terrible criminals. And you don't want them in your society. You really do want them deported. These are people that you really don't want. And so you need to think long and hard before you let these people back into society. So when you have an opportunity to deport them, you need to deport them. So even people that have come here from Latin American countries, they come here seeking refuge in this country. And they don't want they don't want sanctuary state. So I ask you, I actually beg you, please send these people that have come here illegally, then commit crimes in our country. Don't let them stay here. Send them back home. They don't belong here. So please opt out. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Dan Catania. I've been here a few other meetings. This morning, there was a poll, a woman on Fox and Friends said they took a poll in the Bay Area, and over 50% of the people plan on leaving our state within the next 2 years. They're a little bit sick and tired of the taxes. They're sick and tired of the sanctuary policies in this state. They feel they're not being representative. They're going for greener pastures. This is going to eventually affect our property taxes. It's eventually going to affect our property values because the base is leaving. In addition to that, Congressman Dana Roebucker was on TV last night. He may have been on earlier than that. And he was saying that his studies show that over 55% of illegal immigrants coming into our country are on welfare. They're receiving in-state tuitions where our citizens are not. As far as I'm concerned, any politician that took the oath of office is not representing the citizens of California, and not representing the citizens of the United States or the Constitution. As you know, I've stated here before that this is a personal issue to me because my best friend lost his life to an illegal drunk driver. In addition to that, my best friend's granddaughter was murdered by an illegal gang. As far as I'm concerned, by not taking a vote, one way or the other, you refuse to put your name on record if you're for a sanctuary or against it. That means you're not representing the citizens of this county. There's quite an effort right now. A lot of people are disgusted because they came here and they politely asked you to take a vote. By not taking a vote, you are actually taking a vote that you're for a sanctuary. There's an effort underway right now for a recall election. I'm giving you a warning right now. I'm going to join that effort because as far as I'm concerned, we are not being represented in this county, and it's my taxpayers' money that's going to foot your salary. And I am not going to be part of a county, I'm not going to be part of a state that puts illegal immigrants ahead of citizens. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Gail Bartlow, and I live in Applegate, California. Do you need my exact address?
That's fine.
I'm here to speak in support of SB 54, the California Values Act, and thank you for allowing me to. In California, we have a right to have our own laws. Sorry, I'm nervous.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine.
Anyway, Congress has the right to make the laws. They have not done a very good job, in my opinion, but they have the right to make the laws. Regarding immigration status, it's broken, it needs fixed. We have an agency that handles immigration in this country. It's Immigration and Customs Enforcement. As far as I know, they're still active in the state of California. People still get deported. We also have local law enforcement. Their job is to catch criminals, arrest criminals, keep our people safe here in Placer County. I've worked in accounting for almost 50 years. Now, when I look at things, I look at it from money. Who pays for it? How do they pay for it? What do we get for it? My federal taxes pay for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They do their job in California. They deport people daily. And we live in California. We're a donor state. We've more than paid their salaries. I also live in Placer County. I pay state and local taxes. It supports our county sheriff, who are doing a great job, by the by. And if they're being co-opted to do the job of immigration and custom, they're not doing their job. Now, despite what I keep hearing, being a legal immigrant does not get you out of jail free. They are still being arrested, and if they are arrested for a crime, they can be deported. There's a list of 2 pages of crimes that they can be deported for and reported to ICE. So I just don't want to pay twice for the same services. I think immigration and custom can do their job, and local law enforcement can do theirs. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi. My name's Jan Bell, and I live in the Ophir Valley between Auburn and Newcastle. I've been there 25 years, and I love this county. It's a lovely place to live. I tell my family that I'm fortunate to live where other people come to recreate. And I'm very appreciative of our sheriff's work because we live in a very safe county. So I come here in support of your position that the California Values Act is it's a balanced act, actually, between protecting the rights of people and making sure that we're safe. Because there are, and I want to clarify this, it does not let criminals willy-nilly out on the street. There are 35 specific criminal laws, criminal violations that are specified in the bill that then say that local law enforcement can work with ICE to detain and arrest and do whatever they need to do with those people. So there's a misconception out here that SB 54 sets every criminal free on the street, and that's not true. So I just want to refer you to the 35 criminal items that are in the bill that protect us, and therefore I feel like this is not an issue that the county needs to take up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I'm here again. I'm Mark Rosen. I live in Placer County, in the county near Auburn. I'm here to express my concern about a drive in our midst that seems to have the purpose of creating hate. It's at least having the effect of creating hate, mistrust, and division in our society. We have a law, our state law, SB 54, complies with the federal law. The law was adopted to ensure public safety. The 10th Amendment prohibits federal government from commandeering state resources to enforce federal programs. We all know that we don't want our citizens to be afraid of reporting crimes or whatever. We don't want people to be afraid that they will then be deported for doing that. We all know from numerous surveys that there's a higher percentage of lawbreakers among the general population. People who come to this country in search of a better life for themselves and their children are not criminals. We, the hundreds of, I'm here to speak for myself, but also for our group, Indivisible Auburn. We, the hundreds of members of Indivisible Auburn, support the Board of Supervisors in their stance to support SB 54. Thank you.
Morning, Paul.
Good morning. I'm back. Should I tell you my address? I live in Rockland. Look, there's been a lot of arguments on both sides of this, and I would have to say, in my judgment, about half of the arguments are invalid as a relationship to SB 54. I think you guys are all smart enough to know what SB 54 actually says. I think our sheriff is supporting SB 54, is not supporting SB 54, and is doing a great job. We need you to act. And we've asked, this is our 5th time back, my 5th time back. And and we'd like you to put it up on the agenda. I mean, we're spending a lot of time here every week talking about this, and we would like you to talk about it. And as I said last time, not to speak is to speak, not to act is to act. And you guys are not doing your job, particularly Mr. Holmes. You need to call this, and there's a couple of people on the supervisors that want this on the agenda. If you don't like it or you want to vote against it, that's fine. But you need to speak and you need to act. And you need to do it now. Many of these people, this place would be full today, but many of these people are out at the polls, making sure that we're not being heard here, but we can be heard at the polls. And we just ask you to put it on the agenda. If you are afraid to have a discussion on this, then that's well noted. You need to at least have a discussion so we know where you stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Mitchell.
I am Mr. Mitchell, and I'm from Rockland. It's interesting to hear all these arguments, and I'm sure you would have a more expansive discussion if you put it on the agenda, which is entirely appropriate. You are 5 supervisors who represent the interests of approximately 400,000 residents. You're the top elected officials in our county. You disperse what is $800 million plus of taxpayer funds to the various assigned duties for the county. But also you are individuals, and you have the right to have your own opinion, your own views. You understand the Constitution quite clearly, and you're able to take a stand. And you should take a stand. You should say how you believe. Other counties have done it, and there's no reason for you not to entertain this topic as a major issue for a consideration of a petition and to take action one way or the other. As Mr. Catania said, make yourself be known. Say you're for it or against it. Now, the Constitution, as I've mentioned before, in Article 6, Clause 2, says it's the supreme law of the land. And it's been alluded here to the 10th Amendment that somehow we would be intruding on their rights if we exercise the 10th Amendment. But it says, and it's fairly short so it's easy to read, the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, which the issue of immigration and border control clearly have been, nor prohibited by it to the states, meaning given to the states to have authority, which California does not have, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So relatively small issues. But beyond all this, the central point is, it was described how we have 35 laws that apply to this group of people and so on and so forth. The only way you can make the Constitution and our law system work is to treat everybody the same, to look at everybody under the same justice system, and to apply the same rules and laws. And this attempt, largely by Democrats in the state of California, to use the Constitution and the laws thereunder as a menu is wrong. And you need to make yourself clear on that and step forth and have the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. All right, I'm going to close public comment now, but I do want to make a statement. I want everybody to be rest assured that the Placer County Sheriff's Office is not releasing any violent criminals, whether they're undocumented or they're citizens. So you can be sure that our county sheriff's department is protecting the citizens of the county. They're not releasing any violent criminals. No. All right, we will now move on to board member and county executive reports. Any board member reports? Any county executive reports? All righty, fine. So now we will move to our 9:05 timed item. This is from Health and Human Services. It's a presentation calling June 2018 as Elder Abuse Awareness Month in Placer County. Colby, good morning, Colby. Good morning. Colby Hightoff.
Good morning, Chairman Holmes and fellow board members. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak with you this morning. My name is Colby Hightoff, and I'm a program manager at the Adult System of Care, Older Adult Services, which includes Adult Protective Services, In-Home Supportive Services, and the Public Guardian. I'm here with Shannon Quigley, the Elder Abuse Prosecutor from Placer County District Attorney's Office.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Together, we support the Placer County Protect, a multidisciplinary task force team designed to combat elder abuse, provide services to our seniors, and through outreach and awareness, assist our seniors in preparing for their future. We are here today because we need Placer County's help to prepare to protect our seniors. Each year, the number of seniors we serve in the community rises. In 2017, 20% of our population was over the age of 65. By the year 2030, that number will rise to 32%. To give you an example of the demographics, the number of citizens above 85 years old will double. By 2035, our elders will outnumber children nationwide, and this is a first in U.S. history. With an aging population, the issues we already deal with, like elder abuse, limited senior housing, food insecurities, dementia care, and respite care, will only become bigger concerns. Our team is ready to begin to see new challenges presented by our growing senior population. Each year brings another round of new and different circumstances. Each year presents us with unique problems and more complex solutions. We would like to share a few examples with you.
Eleanor was a 79-year-old woman who called 911 when she was beaten by her son and only caregiver. When we responded, we discovered he had financially abused her and isolated her. And now that she had called law enforcement for help, she had no one to provide care. Her one and only caregiver had been arrested. She no longer had transportation, no one to provide care, no knowledge of her own finances, and just like 30% of our seniors, she didn't know where her next meal was coming from. When law enforcement got involved, our entire Protect team got involved. Adult Protective Services was able to help Eleanor gain access to her own finances and protect them from her son. In-home support services found a caregiver for her. Food and medical supplies were provided by Seniors First. Transportation was arranged so she wouldn't miss her doctor's appointments. Her low-income housing was protected by Legal Services of Northern California, as her son had failed to make any rent payments. Her victim advocate found a locksmith who would change her locks for free, so she would feel safe in her own home. And the district attorney's office filed charges and got her a protective order so her son could not return home. The elder that was once isolated and controlled by her son now manages her own finances. She no longer needs Meals on Wheels, and she's found her own voice to help counsel other seniors who experience abuse.
Ernie was an 83-year-old veteran living with his dog in his truck. He called our Seniors First partner with a simple request. He needed a warmer coat, a hat, and a sleeping bag to endure the winter cold. He requested nothing more. Seniors First not only fulfilled his request, but made sure he had access to more of our Placer County resources, such as Veterans Affairs, to gain access to benefits and medical care, Veterans Housing, to find him a home, Senior Peer Counseling, to give him someone to talk to and to share his stories, and the Placer County Chaplaincy, to pray with him. The veteran who was out in the cold now has a warm place to call home. One call to one of our resources started a chain of events that changed his life.
Alice was a 93-year-old woman who was suffering from severe dementia. Her family had locked her in a bedroom with nothing but a mattress, no access to a bathroom, and once she was sick, abandoned her at a hospital. How do we help a woman we can't identify, who doesn't speak? Law enforcement began an investigation. Public Guardian started the conservatorship process so someone could help protect her. And Adult Protective Services worked quickly to find her appropriate housing with very limited resources. The woman that was covered in wounds, starved, and frail now had a team that cared about her well-being, her safety, and her comfort. She now lives in a memory care facility free from the family that abused her. Each situation is unique and presents new challenges, but our goal is to protect them. And our team works tirelessly to support every elder in each individual case. And I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge our Protect members who are present today, if they would stand. This is the team that is dedicated to working diligently to protect our seniors. This is the team that will spend hours creating alternatives that are creative, or other times just persevering and taking dedication to solve a senior's problem. This is your Placer Protect team. For every mountain climbed and every battle won, there is something that we can learn and something that we can do better. For every senior who is in memory care, who's abandoned by their family, we can prepare for them. We can prepare for the veterans who are living out of their car without a home, or the elders who are victimized by the ones they love and trust.
The best thing we can do for every senior in Placer County is to prepare. By strengthening our community relationships, by expanding and building resources, by filling the void created by victimization and abandonment, by educating not just our seniors, but their families on the issues in our community and the services available to them. That is why this year our headline is Preparing is Caring. If we truly care about the elders in our community, if we care about our grandparents and our neighbors, the best thing we can do is prepare. Prepare for the influx of elders we will see in Placer County. Prepare for the services they will need, and support them as they make their own preparations for their future. To help our seniors and families prepare for aging, we are hosting our third annual Preparing is Caring event at the Westfield Galleria in Roseville on June 23rd from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. For our families or seniors that have questions, like what happens when dad can't drive? Am I entitled to Social Security benefits? How do I protect my identity? Or what legal documents should I have ready? For all those questions, we will have answers. We will have the resources that each senior needs to prepare for their own future. Please join us in promoting our event and the importance of preparing for aging. Each board member should have a flyer with information on the event, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for the service you provide for our elders, and I happen to be one. You know, in my business, I had auto repair business out on Highway 49, and I had a lot of, I used to call them my little old ladies. I took care of their cars, but you could see when they started to fail, and sometimes they would forget. I mean, and fortunately, I knew them well enough that I knew a family member, and I always call a family member, you know, I think it's time to take mom's car away. And so I understand that it's a really, when they lose their ability to drive, you know, to go to the store, to go get their hair done, you can go to the doctor's appointment. It really is devastating. So I got to shout out Seniors First for all the good work that they do, and the county, our County Health and Human Services too. So thank you very much. We really appreciate the service you provide.
Thank you.
And now we'll move to our, on my agenda. Our 9:15 timed item, Health and Human Services, the Placer County Youth Commission. What a contrast.
So good morning, Chair Holmes, Mr. Leopold, Mr. Carter, and the rest of the Board of Supervisors. Twyla Abrahamson, Director of the Children's System of Care. And yes, Supervisor Holmes, I was thinking the very same thing. We've come from our wonderful and wise elders and to our absolutely stunning and fantastic next generation of youth. So I am actually here just to introduce Claire Jordan, who's the Vice President of the Placer County Youth Commission, and Patrick Young, who's a Commissioner and the Treasurer, and they will lead the annual report presentation. I think you'll be incredibly impressed with all of the things that they've done this year to help our community, and they're just pretty fantastic. So here they are.
All right, thank you.
Good morning. Again, my name is Claire, and I'm the Vice President of the Placer County Youth Commission. And on behalf of the Commission, I firstly just want to thank you for your support over the years, and especially your encouragement, as this year we've been working on so many new projects, or furthering the projects that have already been established. Okay. And so is there a, And so I am the head of the Social Host Subcommittee, and this year was especially busy for us. And in August, we worked with the Auburn Police Department and especially Chief Ruffcorn to pass the Social Host Ordinance in Auburn. And then after August, we held a press conference in September at Placer High School, and we got to talk to both teachers, students, and staff about this ordinance and just explaining what it entails for their community. And then afterwards, we worked with Lincoln, with Police Chief Doug Lee, and then held a press conference at the day that it actually went into effect on December 14th at their high school to talk to those students. And for the rest of the term, we worked with the Placer County administration, with Cali and CPY, to get unincorporated areas covered. And then that was on your agenda, and it was passed. And just last month, we had a press conference right here outside announcing it going into effect. And so our subcommittee also does smaller events, not just the Social Host Ordinance. And so 2 of those were Road Watch and Sticker Shock. So back in the fall, in October, we did Road Watch right outside my school, where it's very busy. It's posted 45 miles an hour, so it's always wild in the morning. And from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30, we watched all of the cars and counted them to see how many distracted drivers went by. And so actually this year there was a lot less distracted drivers, and we hypothesized that it's because it was very dark in the morning, darker than the rest of the morning because it was very foggy. And so we saw less distracted drivers in the very early morning, and we reported that to Friday Night Live, and then they put it in their statewide statistics. And then in March, we did Sticker Shock here in Auburn at an AM/PM, and we worked with the Auburn Police Department, their Explorers, and the Placer County Sheriff's Department to create stickers and then put them on the beer bottles or on the glass to just remind people before spring break that, you know, it's illegal to give a teenager alcohol. And then our sign said, "Can't buy it, don't supply it."
Okay.
So our Youth Impact Awards subcommittee focused on the Youth Impact Awards, which was hosted on March 18th. We had multiple speakers, Regina Bateson, Kevin Kiley, Supervisor Holmes, and we had a partnership with the Sacramento County Youth Commission. This was the first time we partnered with them and hope to partner with them in the future. Partnering with them, we expanded to include the Sacramento County and have students apply from there. From this kind of award ceremony was to acknowledge the youth that have made an impact, whether it be from community service, applied talents and knowledge, leadership, and overcoming adversity. We really wanted to honor the youth that have made an impact in our community.
Young man, we need your name. You didn't give us your name.
Yeah, my name's Patrick Young. I'm the treasurer of the Placer County Youth Commission.
Good. Thanks, Patrick.
And this was the first year of our education subcommittee, and we talked about what we wanted education to entail, and people in the subcommittee really wanted to work on environmental issues. And so in April, we had 2 events. The first being we worked with Hip Hop Congress in Auburn during their Earth Day, and we set up a booth. And this is our tree, and it's a sustainability tree. And people would write down how they want to help, you know, the environment, and then they would place it on the tree. And then a week later, we held a sustainability workshop at the Rockland Police Department, and local high schoolers came, and we did different events and activities to explain how to be sustainable as a teen.
So also the Education Committee also held a Youth Innovation Challenge. This was the first annual challenge held by PCYC. It was hosted on February 17th. We focused on an issue, and each time the Innovation Challenge will be focusing on an issue that's plaguing either the youth or our community as a whole. This year we focused on food waste. We challenged participants in 4 hours to devise a solution. Over 20 high schoolers attended, and we we gave out $300 in prizes. Many different participants came up with many different solutions, and we worked with a lot of different, we worked with the food banks as well as a few representatives of the industry.
And so this was the second year of our mental health awareness galleries, and we expanded to more schools than last term. We continued with the partnership with Roseville Middle Schools at Ike, Chilton, and Boljon, and then we expanded to Springview Middle School and Maria Montessori, which are both in Rockland. And part of that was because we had new commissioners from these schools, and so we hope that as we expand as a commission, we will also be able to work with more schools. And so we had posters and interactive activities for the youth to participate in, and we would carry them from school to school and have their nurses or their psychiatrists walk them through it to really make sure that they understand the issues and that they feel comfortable talking about it and coming forth if they are having any problems themselves.
So leadership opportunities. We started off the year with the Coalition of Placer Youth Summer Leadership Retreat, where over 10 commissioners and ambassadors went. Other organizations that attended were also the Boys and Girls Club of Auburn, Blacktop Comedy, there's a few others. This event focused on innovation, drug prevention, and self-confidence, as well as establishing yourself as a leader. Next up, we also partnered with the Sacramento Kings. We met with Betty Lowe, the Sacramento Kings Director of Community Impact, and partnered on a few of our projects, as well as helping her with a few of hers. One of the most important ones was the Youth Innovation Challenge. She helped network and bring in the participation of the Sacramento Food Bank, as well as a fundraiser for the basketball game ticket raffle that we will be holding until September.
And then in March, 2 of our ambassadors went to the Reach for the Future conference in Chico, and there was 3 days of workshops, including both talks, lectures, and things like a ropes course. And so they were able to come back and tell us about the experiences that they had, and also the people that they met, and who we want to bring into the commission to get a wider perspective on our county. And then there was the FNL and OTS 2017 Youth Summit back in September, and so both Patrick and I attended, and it was really a great way to learn about new activities that we could do. That's where we learned about sticker shock, and so we took a lot away from that, and we will be sending people to the summit this upcoming year as well. So thank you very much for your time, and again, for just supporting us and everything that we've done this term.
It's amazing what you young people have accomplished. I really am amazed, and when the way you run your meetings, having attended some of your meetings, it's really exciting. Now, Claire, you're graduating and you're heading to where?
Stanford.
Stanford. And Patrick, you're graduated, and where are you heading to?
I'm still a junior.
You're a junior?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're heading back to school. Where do you go to school?
Western Syria.
Oh, that's right. I toured that. I saw you there. Yeah. I'm really amazed at the progress and the work that you young people have taken up on your own without, got some sideboards, but you really have amazed me, and the participation that you have done and the leadership you have done. I say time and time again, people say that you're the leaders of the future, but actually you're the leaders of today leading your generation into the future. And so I just really appreciate and I'm grateful for the work that you do. And I want to recognize, I see Claire, your mom back there. Would you please stand and be recognized? She's been, thank you. Hi, Mom. So thank you very much for the work you do. And Patrick, we'll be seeing you next year. And have you had elections for who's going to be the chair?
Not yet. No?
Well, if you need me to write a letter of endorsement, I'd be glad to. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for a real great presentation. Appreciate it. Now we'll move to our 9:30 a.m. Health and Human Services, Animal Services Fee Schedule Update. So we're going to conduct a public hearing here, but you go ahead, sir.
That's right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman of the Board. Wesley Nix, your Director of Animal Services and Environmental Health. Your Animal Services Division has achieved many of its goals and targets the community asked for than you asked for over the last few years. I can't say how proud I am of the staff, volunteers, and our nonprofit organizations that have come together to achieve that. And in order to continue enhancing the programs and moving forward, we need to adjust the fee schedule a little bit. So to briefly touch on where we are right now, if you look at what they call the live release rate, which we've hit at 92%, which is pretty much unparalleled through the nation, one of the best facilities in the state. We're doing that, again, as a partnership with all of our organizations, nonprofit, and our volunteers all coming together. No matter how sick an animal is, we're successfully finding homes for it. Comparing that to the national average, 81.5% for dogs is a live release rate comparison, and we've hit 91.4%.
Right.
And for cats, the national average is only 65%, and we've hit 92.6%, which again is unparalleled. The number of animals that we've adopted out has also been increasing over the last year, where dog adoptions are up by 46%. And cat adoptions are up by 151%. That's partially because of the new facility. People just love to go there. There's so much more foot traffic and so much more community interest. We've been winning awards. As you know, in 2016, we won an award for Help with the Homeless to provide care for their animals, which normally would not get any veterinary medicine attention. 2017 for our award with our Feral Cat Program and Kitten Central, our nonprofit partners. It also received one of NACO's 100 Brilliant Ideas at Work nationwide. And we've been advised this year that we're receiving an award for collaboration with Placer County Animal Services and Gold Country Wildlife, which thank you, Mr. Chairman, for forwarding that. It's a great idea. The rural-urban interface between pets and wildlife has really been a great partnership. It's a great idea. Just to let you know, we have an open house coming Saturday, October 6th. Last year we had over 1,000 attendees. Hopefully all of you can make it, or at least some of you. It's a joint open house with Gold Country Wildlife and Animal Shelter. We kind of have tours that stagger so people can see the wildlife and then come over and see the pets and domestic animals. In tandem, we have about 125 active volunteers to help us with that. And all of our spay and neuter surgeries are now performed in-house, so we're saving quite a bit of money there by not having to contract that out, and hopefully we'll have a low-cost or free spay and neuter event at the open house. Our partners will be there: Field Haven, Feline Center, Kitten Central, Humane Society of Sierra Foothills and Tahoe, and other local partners. So some of the changes that are coming up that we need to adjust the fees for, we're bringing the licensing program back in-house. I know some of the board members asked us to do that some time ago. I had to find a software solution before that could occur. We've now solved that, and starting this month, the licensing program is back in Placer County. That should save about $40,000, that we don't have to use any outside vendors for that service. Part of it is we're introducing digital licenses, so rather than just a brass tag with little numbers stamped into it, it's much better looking, more durable. It's got the Placer logo on it, and the back of it's got a QRC code that you can launch an app from your phone, which will link you up with the owner's information. That should reunite lost pets with their owners without our involvement, again, saving more time and money. So we're proposing a decrease in the 3-year animal license by $13 to create an incentive for people to buy the new license tag in a 3-year cycle. That'll save us time and money. We don't have to renew it every year. Plus the rabies vaccinations, everything, booster shots are on a 3-year cycle. So we can reissue a new license and get the animals vaccinated as required all at the same time. So the $13 in reduction hopefully will create an incentive to do that. The increase in the owner surrender, right now we're charging $50 for someone who surrenders their pet to us. We have to care for it and then find adoption, find a new home for it. Our costs are really closer to $130 or more to do that service. So we're recommending increasing that fee from $50 to $130 just to recapture Placer County's costs. The increase in rabies analysis, now that we have to ship the specimens once they're prepared for rabies analysis down to the Sacramento County lab, we have essentially additional transportation costs are primarily the increase there. of about $36 per analysis. So we would recommend increasing that fee by $36. And we recommend adding a disposal for deceased animals over 100 pounds. Right now, if someone has a horse or something that passes away, we help dispose of it. If it's over 100 pounds, we get additional costs from our vendor. So we just recommend putting an add cost fee in there to pass that cost along to provide that service. And then the other changes are just basically clarifying to the language. They make a little more sense. So with that, Animal Services thanks the Board of Supervisors for supporting us on our mission and allowing us to improve animal care. Everyone in Animal Services knows that without your backing and support, they could not have achieved these goals and reached these milestones and been able to do what they've always wanted to in their careers and provide the best care for animal services possible. And they wanted me to thank you all this morning. Take this opportunity. So with that, I can answer any questions about the fee
Well,
adjustment.
first of all, I hope other people that come forward with adjustments on their fees don't have pretty pictures of their dogs.
Yeah, well, it helps a
Really,
little bit.
it works pretty well.
Yeah.
But Supervisor Euler has a comment.
Yeah, my question goes, pardon me, to the issue of the fairly substantial increase on the owner release side of things. I'm just concerned that we're just going to see a spike in abandonments if we're going to charge that much to have an animal actually surrendered. I think we're
Getting a little too much.
you've exceeded the point of diminishing returns at that point. I would really encourage, I mean, at least track it if you're going to go that high.
Right.
And see what happens, but.
Yeah, we did take a look at that a little bit, do a little study on that, Supervisor Euler, and we decided that if, people that actually care about their pets will go ahead and surrender it at that rate. It hasn't really been a change. We haven't seen a lot of abandonments. Other counties are kind of similar to that rate. We haven't seen a big difference there. So we're pretty confident it shouldn't create a problem, but we certainly would keep an eye on it.
I don't know if we have the opportunity to maybe even set up some kind of a scholarship opportunity for families who might not be able to afford that kind of fee but do want to surrender their pet to a safe, controlled environment, and then we give people in the public the opportunity to donate to that kind of a scholarship where we can cover those costs through something like that.
That's a fantastic idea. And then we could perhaps adjust the fee down if it's in the best interest of the animal. They have no choice. They have to surrender it rather than just abandon it at a shopping center or something. We could maybe have the opportunity to adjust it.
That is a good idea. Was it your daughter's?
My daughter's idea.
Easy, all right.
I'm sure he knows better though.
Supervisor Duran has a comment.
No, I was just going to add a little bit on what Supervisor Euler was talking about. I don't have a problem making the motion on this with the caveat that you have the discretion to set up whatever waiver, donation, fee process that you can to make it right for folks that still that are in a position that can't afford to, turn their dog in, that we still take it and provide that animal a home, because I certainly wouldn't want to see dogs running in the streets because people can't afford
No, we don't either.
to bring their dogs in, so.
Right, yeah. Maybe a fee for if it's in the best interest of the animal's well-being, we can have latitude.
Sure. That's all I had, thank you.
Alrighty, anybody in the audience wish to address us on this issue? I just have one comment. You referenced the 2018 NACO award for the Animal Services in Gold Country Wildlife Rescue. When that comes forward, will that be presented to the Board of Supervisors?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Okay.
Gold Country, Sally Sue will be on point there. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right, yeah, she made that clear to me, too. as she always does. All right, well, thank you for the report. Now I'll entertain a motion.
What you're doing.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving seconds to move the item. All those in favor, please say aye, or is this, this is a public hearing. Open up the public hearing. Anybody in the audience wish to address this? Close the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. We will now move to the 9:40 timed item. California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, CAL FIRE, Cooperative Fire Protection Agreement for fiscal year 2018-19. Sarah Poindexter, hello, and Chief Morris.
Good morning, Chairman Holmes, honorable members of the board. Again, my name is Sarah Poindexter, Management Analyst with the County Executive Office, and joining me today is CAL FIRE Chief George Morris. We're here today to request the following action. Adopt a resolution approving the CAL FIRE contract for fiscal year 2018-19 in the amount of $12,730,662. We will start this morning by providing a brief overview of the contract and the services that CAL FIRE provides to the county, including a new operational concept of a relief pool, and we will end with a few comments from Chief Morris. As your board is aware, the Placer County Fire System spans approximately 475 square miles of unincorporated county area, the equivalent of nearly 1/3 of the county. Serving as Placer County Fire, CAL FIRE provides fire protection, fire prevention, emergency medical services, hazardous materials, all-hazard emergency incident response, and dispatch service to a population of nearly 52,000 people. The CAL FIRE contract cost for fiscal year 2018-19 is approximately $12.7 million. This cost includes a 5% increase of approximately $596,000, which is due to collectively bargained wage increases with Bargaining Unit 8 and the State of California. The quoted cost of this agreement assumes all personnel are at full compensation for budgeting purposes. However, Placer County is billed in arrears quarterly for the actual cost of services provided. Historically, the actual cost comes in at about 90% of the quoted contract cost. The CAL FIRE contract funds 60 full-time equivalent firefighters operating from 8 fully staffed 24-hour-a-day fire stations, including 5 county-owned stations, as well as 3 additional stations that operate under an Amador agreement. Essentially, the Amador agreement provides services through CAL FIRE-owned stations, with CAL FIRE assuming jurisdiction during the fire season and Placer County maintaining jurisdiction in the off-season. Through this method, the county is able to reduce costs by leveraging existing state and local resources to maximize service delivery throughout Placer County Fire's service territory. In addition to the paid staff, CAL FIRE also manages a robust staff of approximately 91 volunteer and resident firefighters operating out of the 8 career fire stations as well as 7 community volunteer stations. This contract also provides administrative and operational overhead, which supports all career and volunteer fire stations, including chief officer coverage 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, training, fleet maintenance, procurement, communications, and facility maintenance support. A new component has been added to the 18-19 contract, which establishes a relief personnel pool comprised of 3 fire apparatus engineer paramedics in lieu of a seasonally staffed Type 3 engine. This was added in an effort to reduce unplanned overtime. The relief pool will be funded by the Fire Fund, allowing for system-wide use of personnel across the multiple zones of benefit. This concludes staff summary of the CAL FIRE contract, and if there are no questions at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Morris to provide an update regarding Placer County Fire and what to expect for service in the coming year.
Any questions from Ms. Poindexter? I see none.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I thank you for considering renewal of the Cooperative Fire Protection Reimbursement Agreement between Placer County and the State of California. We have a long-standing, strong working relationship between CAL FIRE and Placer County, and work collaboratively every day to ensure that we are meeting the public need and the emergency response objectives of Placer County. Over the course of the last year, the Placer County Fire Department responded to 8,362 calls for service, an increase of 369 calls from the previous year. Approximately 72% of those calls were EMS related, and that includes medical aids, traffic collisions, and rescues. 18% were fire related, including structure and vegetation fires. The remaining percentage of calls represented a variety of other call types, including hazardous materials and public assist. Calls for service have continued to increase year over year, resulting in a 22% increase over the past 5 years. The response trend is likely to continue. As an update to our staffing locally, on Monday, the Nevada Yuba Placer unit of CAL FIRE will be at full staffing levels. Our aircraft is on station in Grass Valley, and we are working on fuel reduction projects in defensible space inspections unit-wide. These resources are integral to Placer County Fire Department. The reality of this work is tough. In the simplest terms, we meet people on the worst day of their life. We realize that that worst day is all relative to the person needing help. And in my 23-year career, I know firsthand the panic, the fear, and the uncertainty of the person in respiratory arrest, and I've been in their homes helping them cling to life. I've seen the pictures of their family and their friends around them, and I know that we are not only aiding in this person's life, but those who love them. This community depends on us, all of us, to keep them from loss of life or livelihood. It is our duty to be trained, practiced, and prepared to respond to any emergency because to the person needing help, it is a dire circumstance. We treat every call for service as an opportunity to do good, to help, and to mitigate the emergency. I'm reminded of a woman who, while homeless in North Auburn, received aid multiple times from our Atwood station over the last year. They saw her struggle, they responded to her emergencies time and time again, and they gave her the respect and dignity that all people deserve. A month ago, back on her feet, this person took time to go to the station and thank them for their kindness in her darkest hours. I wasn't surprised by what she said, but it affirmed my pride in the men and women of Placer County Fire Department and the Cal Fire Nevada Yuba Placer Unit. That's what our profession's all about. We carry away with us the duress, the suffering, and the fear of the people we serve. And most times we can end the emergency, but all of us have had the long, quiet ride back to the station when we could not. I worry about the safety of our community every day, and my troops do too. Our readiness is paramount to a successful outcome to an emergency incident. We have to be ready for myriad emergencies, including fires, technical and water rescues, hazardous materials incidents, traffic collisions, emergency medical response, and other hazardous conditions. We work closely with our partners in public safety from local fire departments and districts, the law enforcement agencies, and our federal partners to maximize our service delivery. We are training to address emerging threats to public safety in multidisciplinary response environments. In recognition of our response readiness, I'm happy to announce that Placer County Fire Department has recently undergone a review from the Insurance Services Organization, or ISO, and we were able to reduce the ISO rating from a 610 to a 410, which should help residents within PCFD's service territory see a reduction in homeowner insurance premiums. As we enter the summer of 2018, we are all reminded of the devastation of 2017. October brought 4 of the 20 most deadly fires in California history, burning simultaneously. December brought the Thomas Fire, which would become the largest fire in California history. Last week, the United States Forest Service declared the Thomas Fire officially out. Entering 2017, we were coming off of the wettest winter in 150 years, creating a significant grass crop. UC Davis Field Extension in Yuba County calculated grass at 3,600 pounds per acre, the largest ever recorded. In May of 2018, last month, the UC Davis Field Extension once again completed the grass crop survey, calculating a weight of 5,800 pounds per acre, a 38% increase from 2017. So we don't know if the devastation of 2017 is a harbinger for 2018, but what we do know is the amount of fuel is significantly greater. We know that we have had a consistent year-over-year increase in call volume, and that means more fires. I can speak for not only CAL FIRE and Placer County Fire Department, but the broader Placer County Fire Service when I say that we are ready. We ask that the public work to maintain defensible space around their homes and to plan and to prepare to evacuate if called for. At this point, I'd like to open it up to any questions, should you have any.
Any questions? Supervisor Duran.
Yes, thank you, George, for bringing this forward. You know, my questions are going to go to mutual aid, and as we know, every jurisdiction surrounding the county is impacted in some way, shape, or form with fire. And I just want to make sure that we're keeping track of how much resources are going to what jurisdiction, you know, because that in the future is going to help us determine, you know, further consolidation efforts, you know, because as other jurisdictions are weaker financially, there's going to be more pressure placed on the general fund and on CAL FIRE to make up, you know, the difference. And we've already got the discussion that's happening, you know, with the independent fire districts. So I just want to make sure that we're staying on top of that. We know, you know, maybe we can get an update every so often to those supervisors who want to see that, maybe biannually, as to what resources and how they're being spread across the jurisdictions and whether or not we're getting our fair share of mutual aid in response to that. So
I'm happy to do that for you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Supervisor Euler.
Yeah, my question goes to the issue of the 5% increase in the year-over-year cost. And looking into our crystal ball, what are we looking at when you look over the next 5 years? Because clearly 5% per year is just not a sustainable number for local governments.
So the 5% for CAL FIRE's, the MOU between CAL FIRE Firefighter Local 2881 and the state of California, that sunsets in 2021 and 22. So it's a 5-year contract. We entered into it in 2017. So those 5-year year over year will stop at that point, so they should level out.
But it is 5% per year through 2021.
Yeah, that's the approximate number. It's different by classification, but that's about what the bottom line is. So once we hit 2022, which would be the end of the increase in the minimum wage mandate, which is really what's caused this. Minimum wage mandate came in, and our lowest ranks hit at that minimum wage, and so they had to address compaction within the rest of the ranks all the way up through the rank and file. They have not addressed it for the supervisory ranks. But that's where you see that increase, and that's where it's spread it all the way across. But in 2022, that MOU sunsets, so the previous MOU lasted about 12 years. So if that's an indication of the cost maybe flattening out at that time, I think that's probably accurate.
Any other comments from board members? Anybody in the audience wish to address us on this item? I just want to say to Chief Morris, thank you for, I know you're working diligently to keep the costs down, and I appreciate the approach to corralling overtime. That's a big cost driver, so appreciate all the service you do. And I know for a fact that you go over and above the contract periodically, and we appreciate that. It goes unsaid, but I'm aware of that. So I just wanted to thank you, and I want to thank staff for the leadership they've done as far as with Becky and Amanda and now Sarah. Because we've got some challenges ahead of us, but we're up to the task. Already, it's been moved and seconded to approve the CAL FIRE Department of Forestry Cooperative Fire Protection Agreement for fiscal year 2018-2019. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the item is moved. Thank you so much. That concludes our timed items this morning. And now we'll move to Administrative Services, Correctional Food Services Program. Mr. Gamez.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Holmes, members of the board. Jerry Gamez, your Director of Administrative Services. And with me is Captain David Powers, our jail commander, and Brett Wood, our purchasing manager. The Correctional Food Services Program item before you today has 6 action items, so bear with me while I go through those. The first is authorization for the county executive officer to take all necessary steps to terminate the Aramark Inmate Food Services Agreement. Authorization for the county executive officer or his designee to execute an agreement with Summit Food Services, LLC of Roseville, Minnesota for correctional food services with a 5-year contract term in the amount not to exceed $13.2 million. Authorization for 3 additional 2-year options for renewal, subject to departmental concurrence and available funding. Authorization of a budget revision with the appropriate accounts of the correctional food services budget in the amount of $95,000. Approval to add appropriate components to the county's master fixed asset list. And finally, authorization for the purchasing manager to execute the acquisition and installation agreements for a conveyor dishwashing system. As a matter of kind of background, in March of 2017, your board approved the award of a 5-year agreement to Aramark Corporation for the delivery of correctional food services. That action actually transitioned the correctional food services program from a self-op in-house model to an outsourced model. We still believe that this model continues to be a very viable solution for the delivery of these services. However, since the inception of the agreement, Aramark's performance has been evaluated based on the following criteria: food quality, safety and security, staff retention, and the consistency of meeting contractual obligations. During this period, issues have arisen which have led both Aramark and the county to the conclusion that the agreement should be terminated. In order to facilitate the transition to a new service provider, staff requested and evaluated proposals from 2 other firms that had initially responded to the county's RFP. Both firms responded to our request, and staff evaluated their responses, conducted extensive reference checks, and met with firm representatives. Based on the outcome of these efforts, Summit Food Services was identified as a firm that best met the county's requirements. Summit's proposal includes a multifaceted approach with consistent supervision, dynamic menus, comprehensive staff and inmate training programs, and a food production method that highlights and enhances the food quality for inmates, staff, and the Seniors First program through the delivery of freshly prepared meals. Their proposal also includes an option for family members to purchase restaurant-style grade meals for inmates in lieu of the standard meal. Summit Food Services has also agreed to interview all former county employees currently employed by Aramark and hire those interested in transitioning to the new firm. However, to facilitate Summit's proposal, food production and delivery methodology, the transition from the current disposable tray to a reusable tray solution is required. Reusable trays will reduce long-term costs associated with the purchase of disposable trays and allow for the delivery of freshly prepared meals. This approach will also require a one-time investment in the acquisition of a commercial-grade conveyor dishwashing system to be located at the South Placer Correctional Facility. Funding for the acquisition of this equipment will require a budget revision and within the appropriate accounts of the Correctional Food Services budget and the addition of the appropriate components to the Master Fixed Asset List. And finally, the management of the county's Correctional Food Services program, including contract administration services for the new agreement, would also transition from the Department of Facility Works, or the Department of Public Works and Facilities, to the Department of Administrative Services. Summit's Food Services delivery proposal is consistent with the projected program cost savings originally presented to your board back in 2017. However, an increase in contract administration and professional services budgets are anticipated as a result of transitioning to contract administration duties from a part-time to a full-time function, and the addition of kitchen security services to prevent contraband and improve safety and security within the facility. This concludes my presentation, and we're available to answer any questions your board may have regarding these actions being requested.
All right, any Supervisor Euler?
Not a question. First of all, I want to thank you for the meeting that we had and I'm sure you had with all my colleagues where you briefed us on this. Very detailed, and as you identified, 6 different items, so a lot going into this. And want to thank you for your resourcefulness in solving the problem and coming up with a very good solution to what was an ongoing problem. And I'm glad that our partner at the time recognized that the parting of ways was probably the best way to go, and that they worked with us well in order to facilitate that as well. So thank you for moving this forward for the sake of not only the folks that were subject to some of the questionable practices, but to those of us who would have had to pay for any impending litigation that would have resulted from it. So thank you for that as well.
Supervisor Euler?
That was me.
I mean Supervisor Durant.
Yeah, I also want to bring this forward, and having represented the State Department of Corrections, I'm very familiar with how food plays a role in safety. So, you know, and I want to be very clear that this switch isn't because we're being nice to, you know, and you know, wanting to give inmates, you know, the best of the best, but you know, there is a certain decorum that you have in food services. So I just want our correctional chief to kind of tell us, captain, to tell us a little bit about that security piece of it.
Thank you. The security piece has to go with just the quality of food. Food is a controller of behavior and can be inside corrections. If it's a bad quality, the inmates are going to become upset. It's very important to them. If they become upset, disruptions within the tank becomes security issues within the facility, security problems for the officers and deputies that are working in those facilities. So the food, like I said, is a controller of behavior in the facility and can be, and it became an issue currently, and we're hoping this improvement will solve any of those issues that we're having.
Thank you, thank you. That, you know, corrections in general are, it's one of those areas that is closed and not a whole lot of people know what goes on there, but literally people die every year across the United States because of food issues. quantity, quality, those kinds of things. And like you said, when the inmates are not happy, that creates a safety issue for not only themselves, but to the officers that are protecting them and protecting us. So, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. It's been moved and seconded to approve the Administrative Correctional Food Services Program. And will the clerk please call the roll?
Duran. Wygant.
Yes.
Euler. Holmes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now we'll move to item B, Learning Management System with Cornerstone of Santa Monica. It's Wendy. Hi, Wendy.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Brett Wood, and I'm being joined today with Wendy Brodnick of Human Resources. We're here today to request your board's approval of a request for proposal number 10670 to Cornerstone of Santa Monica, California, for the acquisition of a learning management system and the implementation services for that in the amount of $84,000 annually over the course of 5 years, and a maximum amount of $420,000 to be funded by the Countywide Systems Fund. As a matter of context and background for this, we currently utilize a system called Target Solutions for our online learning and development system. We've utilized that system since 2004, and over the last several years, the Human Resources Department has initiated an effort to assess the validity and value of that system within the county's employees groups. And as a result of that, they determined that it was not meeting all of our needs and was not as user-friendly and functional as it needed to be. Based on that assessment, Human Resources and Procurement Services worked together to develop an RFP that we issued on the streets to find a current an all-online system that we could utilize for on-demand training. We went through the RFP process. We received proposals from 8 different firms, and after evaluating those, determined that Cornerstone was the top-ranked firm and met both our existing needs as well as what we anticipate to be our future needs. This will address multiple problems that Human Resources has been addressing over the past several years with our existing system, and address the needs of the departments in being able to track certifications and trainings, not through spreadsheets, but through the system itself, to maintain a better and more functional and valid database of trainings that have been accomplished by county staff. That concludes our presentation, and we'd be happy to we're requesting your board's authorization and happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Any comments from board members? I see none. Anyone in the audience wish to address us on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Learning Management System Cornerstone of Santa Monica, California. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. Thank you. Thanks, Wendy. Now we'll move to item 6, County Executive Fire and Emergency Services Revenue Agreement with Western Placer Waste Management Authority. And it's Amanda. Morning, Amanda.
Good morning, Chairman Holmes, honorable members of the board. My name is Amanda Flo, Management Analyst from the County Executive Office. Joined with me today is Michelle Kingsbury, Principal Management Analyst, also from the County Executive Office. And we also have Eric Otto, an Environmental Engineering Program Manager from Western Placer Waste Management Authority, present and available for any questions. Today we are requesting approval of a payment agreement, essentially a revenue agreement, with Western Placer Waste Management Authority, also known as WAMA, for the provision of fire and emergency services for a term of 5 years in the amount of $244,000 for year 1 and increasing annually thereafter by CPI. As your board may recall, in November 2012, your board approved the formation of Community Facilities District Number 2012-1, Sunset Industrial Area Services, CFD, to fund ongoing fire protection and emergency services within the Sunset area of unincorporated Placer County. This CFD is intended to equitably spread costs of these services to new development within the Sunset area via a special assessment on the property taxes of annexed parcels. The maximum annual assessment would be the greater of either 8 cents per square foot of building or $757 per acre. These unit rates were presented in 2012 dollars and are subject to annual inflationary adjustments for properties annexed into the CFD. As you're well aware, the county, through a contract with CAL FIRE, provides various fire protection, hazardous materials, and other emergency services to the WATMA-owned facilities, including the Western Regional Sanitary Landfill and Materials Recovery Facility. WATMA, as a joint powers authority, is not subject to annexation into the CFD and therefore is not obligated to fund ongoing fire protection in the Sunset area. However, WATMA believes continued delivery of emergency services to the WATMA facilities is in the public's interest and voluntarily entered into a 5-year payment agreement with the county for fire and emergency services on April 8th, 2014, and they now wish to enter into a new 5-year agreement. This revenue agreement is consistent with and supports the board policy to spread the cost of these services equitably to development within the Sunset area. This agreement was approved by the WATMA board at their May 10th, 2018 meeting. This concludes staff presentation, and now we will open it up to any comments, questions, or further discussion.
Any questions, comments from board members? I see none. Anyone in the audience wish to address this item? See none, bring it back to the board. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 6, Fire and Emergency Service Revenue Agreement with Western Placer Waste Management Authority. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the item is moved. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Now we'll move to item 7, Health and Human Services, Emergency Housing and Supportive Service Contract with the Gathering Inn Incorporated.
Good morning, Chairman Holmes, members of the board, Jeff Brown, your Health and Human Services Director. I'm here today with a recommendation that your board approve a service contract with the Gathering Inn to operate the Auburn Homeless Shelter. As a bit of background, the Gathering Inn, based in Roseville, has been providing services to homeless individuals and families for over a decade throughout Placer County. They currently work with 38 faith-based congregations to provide both overnight shelter and food to individuals in need. On May 9th of last year, your board directed staff to develop a request for proposals for the provision of homeless housing and supportive services at the Auburn Shelter. This RFP was issued early this year and brought back to your board for consideration on May 22nd. On this date, your board rejected the recommendation of the RFP Evaluation Committee and directed staff to commence negotiations with the Gathering Inn for these services. So today I specifically request that your board approve 2 items as follows and noted in the board letter. First, approve a service contract with the Gathering Inn Incorporated for the amount of $1,157,549, inclusive of an advance of $96,462 for startup costs to support the ongoing provision of emergency housing and supportive services for the time period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign the agreement with Risk Management and County Council concurrence, and to sign subsequent amendments not to exceed $50,000 consistent with subject matter and scope of work with Risk Management and County Council concurrence. I also ask that you amend this request to include authority for the HHS Director to exercise options to extend the contract for 2 one-year periods at the same annual rate. And finally, I request that your board approve the associated site access agreement between the county and the Gathering Inn Incorporated and authorize the Director of Public Works and Facilities or designee to execute with Risk Management and County Council concurrence and to extend the term of the site access agreement as necessary to be coterminous with the contract for services, and to amend said site access agreement as necessary to address services provided pursuant to the contract for services, subject again to Risk Management and County Council concurrence. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from board members? Seeing none, any questions, comments from audience members? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for action. It's been moved and seconded to approve the item 7, emergency housing and supportive services contract with Gathering Inn, and approve the associated site access agreement. You're moving your.
I'm just saying, including the amendment that.
Yeah, including.
The director.
Yeah.
Cited.
That the directors said. You got that? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none? Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you wanted to jump up and say something, Keith, but you need to quit while you're ahead, buddy.
I was just gonna be
Yeah. Thank you all for your support and your hard work. Thank you. Now we'll move to item 7B, Community Outpatient Mental Health Services Umbrella Contract with Multiple Providers.
Good morning again, Chair Holmes, Board of Supervisors, Mr. Leopold, Mr. Carden, Twyla Abrahamson again from the Children's System of Care, and I'm jointly presenting this item for the adult and the children's system of care. In order to best meet State Department of Healthcare Services mandates to provide a full range of mental health services, Placer County employs a network of experienced private therapists, counselors, and psychologists, which allows us to provide these services in a variety of geographical locations throughout the county and allows our clients to have a choice of providers. Outpatient mental health services are less costly than intensive services, and having these providers readily accessible allows less stigma and trauma than hospital or residential services. Currently, 55 practitioners are under this umbrella agreement, and they typically deliver services to approximately 500 children, youth, and adults each year, again, resulting in better outcomes for individuals and families as they are kept stable at home and in their communities. The amount requested this year continues a trend of decreasing expenses over the past 3 years of over 25%, due predominantly to managed care health plans becoming operational in Placer County and starting to serve the mental health needs of those with less serious challenges. So we're requesting that your board take the following actions. Approve this annual provider agreement in an aggregate amount of $500,000, which includes $435,000 in federal and state funding and $65,000 in required county general fund match. The funding has been included in the department's fiscal year 18-19 proposed budget. We're also asking that the board approve the annual provider list, authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to amend the list of providers, sign and execute the provider agreements, and to sign subsequent amendments consistent with the subject matter and scope of work, with risk management and county council concurrence. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and thank you for your consideration.
Any questions from board members? I just want to point out the fiscal impact that it's 87% funded by state and federal government, so just be clear so everybody understands that. All right, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the board on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the items 7B 1 and 2. This is a roll call vote.
Duran. Yes. Wygant.
Yes.
Euler. Holmes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Twyla. Now we're going to move to item 7C, Child Care Service for CalWorks and Welfare to Work Participants, contract with Placer County Office of Education. Hello, Greg.
Good morning. I'm Greg Geisler. I'm the program manager for the Human Services, Employment Services and CalWorks program. And I'm here today requesting the board's approval for a contract with the Placer County Office of Education, Child Care Services for CalWorks Welfare to Work program for the period of July 1st through June 30th, July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, in the amount of $1,915,000, and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign a contract and subsequent amendments up to $50,000 of the total contract amount. Background, CalWorks Employment Services assists parents in becoming job ready and attaining employment. with funds allocated to the county welfare agencies for childcare to assist in this, in parents finding employment. Since the implementation in 1998 of CalWorks, Health and Human Services has contracted with the Placer County Office of Education for these services. The number of families receiving CalWorks benefits in most recent years has gone down, due in part to the efforts of employment services in getting folks employed. While many recipients have successfully found self-sustaining employment, those that remain have greater barriers. And one of those is oftentimes younger children. Children aged 0 to 24 months continue to represent the largest percentage of child care expense, and the cost for child care per child has risen 11.3% for children ages 0 to 24 months. So we're having a lot more children under age 2. An average of 155 children per month will receive child care services through CalWorks. The fiscal impact, this contract is included in the department's 2018-2019 requested budget and is funded exclusively with federal and state funds, so there is no county general funds required. So I'm able to answer any questions, and thanks for your consideration.
Supervisor Euler.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Anyone in the audience wish to address the board on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for approval. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 7C1, approve contract with Placer County Office of Education for Child Care Services. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none, the item is moved. And now we're going to move to item 7D, paid work experience and paid internship placement services for CalWorks Welfare to Work participants.
Thank you very much. So now I'm requesting the board approve a contract with the Community College Foundation for CalWorks Welfare to Work paid work experience and paid internship placements for the period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, in the amount of $617,934,000, and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign this contract and subsequent amendments up to $50,000 of the contract amount. In 2014, Health and Human Services, in partnership with the Business Advantage Network, entered into a contract with the Community College Foundation to implement paid work experience and paid internships and trainings, which provides 100% wage reimbursement to employers who hire participants and students who may need short-term work experience in their field of study or to become more job ready. The subsidized wage program is a win-win for employers and participants as alike. Employers are able to hire employees that they to sustain their businesses that they might not otherwise be able to afford, and participants have access to jobs that otherwise might not be available. 124 participants have been paid in a WEX program so far this fiscal year. The program serves an average of 160 participants annually. Since 2014, paid WEX has helped 665 participants gain valuable work experience, and 94 of those placements are in have been in positions within the county departments. An example of the success of the program has been our VITA, or Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. Started in 2016, the WEX participants have been trained in filing tax returns and assisting tax filers, and over 14 of those persons since 2016 of those participants have assisted the public in receiving over $1.25 million in federal and state tax returns. The contract is funded with 100% federal and state funds, and so there is no county general fund contribution. Funding for the contract is included in the department's 2018-2019 proposed budget. So, any questions?
Any questions from board members? Seeing none, anyone in the audience wish to address us on this? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item 7D, paid work experience and paid internship placement services for CalWorks Welfare to Work participants. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. Thank you. The item is moved.
Thank you very much.
All right. And now it's time for the Amy Ellis Show as we move to item 7E, the Placer County Mental Health Services Act reversion expenditure plan.
Exactly.
Hello, Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Ellis with the Adult System of Care, and I'm here this morning to request that you adopt a resolution adopting the Placer County Mental Health Services Act reversion expenditure plan for 2017 to 2020. So in 2005, Placer County received funding and implemented services under the state-funded Mental Health Services Act. The funding has been managed, as you know, to allow these services to remain stable during the recent economic downturn and supports county-operated programs, contracted programs, and necessary administrative support for management and reporting. The Board of Supervisors is required to approve all service and expenditure plans like this reversion plan being brought to you today. This plan will act as a separate update to Placer County's MHSA 3-year plan and expenditure report for fiscal years 17-18 through 19-20 that was approved by your board in July of 2017. AB 114 became effective on July 10th, 2017, and implemented provisions concerning funds subject to reversion. These reverted funds were reallocated to the counties of origin for the purposes for which they were originally allocated and must be expended by June 30th, 2020. On February 2nd, Placer County received the official notice that $471,335 of innovations funding from fiscal years 2008 and 2009 and 2014-15 and $1,603,580 capital facilities and technology needs funds from fiscal years 07-08 were reallocated, and a plan for spending needed to be developed, according to the guidelines set forth by DHCS, our Department of Healthcare Services. Placer County plans to utilize the technology funds to implement enhancements to the electronic health record, which is our avatar records, for both internal staff and for providers. This will allow us to better exchange information, coordinate the care of individuals, be able to track beneficiaries, be able to produce data, and do other things necessary to improve our services. The expected expenditure is approximately $1,053,580 for fiscal year 17-18 through fiscal year 19-20 to expend those reverted funds. Placer County plans to utilize the capital facilities funds on 3 capital improvement projects to expand and enhance service delivery to those receiving mental health care. One project will be the ASOC DeWitt campus to expand medical supports. Another will be at the Kirby Hills facility for improvements. And one project will be, and it's a small, because I know we just remodeled, a little small project there to enhance improvements. And one project will be a joint venture with Meta Housing Corporation and the City of Roseville to provide office space at a housing development for services providers to be on site. The expected expenditures is approximately $550,000 for fiscal year 17-18 through 19-20. And lastly, our innovation plan is a homeless integrated care coordination and evaluation plan connected to our whole person care program. The plan to expend the reverted funds includes funding our current approved innovation fund and using the reverted funds first until expended. The $471,335 of innovation funds subject to reversions will be spent by June 30th, 2020, which is required. All of the costs of this plan are funded by state funds, and no county general funds are required. And just so you know that all of this planning and decisions about how to use these reverted funds go through our local stakeholder steering committee, the Campaign for Community Wellness, and was posted for 30 days in order to receive public comment. The 30-day public comment period for this plan ended on June 3rd. The reversion plan was updated on Monday to reflect public comment that was received over the weekend, along with the department's response. That change is reflected on page 5 of the version that's in front of you. Additional copies are available here at the meeting with the clerk of the board for the public. The department is asking the board's approval of this updated version of the reversion expenditure plan.
All right. Any questions, comments from board members? Seeing none, anyone in the audience wish to address us on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to board for approval. Moved and seconded to approve item 7E, Placer County Mental Health Services Act Reversion Expenditure Plan for 2017-2020. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none, we'll move on to item F, Substance Use Treatment and Related Services Agreements with Multiple Providers.
Yes, me again, it's Amy Ellis. And I have two actions related to substance use treatment and transitional housing services. So the first is to approve the following agreements for substance use treatment services and transitional housing from July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2020, and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign the agreement and subsequent amendments up to $50,000 with risk management and county council concurrence. And those are with the following providers: Aegis Medical Aegis Medical Systems Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $7 million, Community Recovery Resources in the amount not to exceed $6,843,200, Koinonia Foster Homes in the amount not to exceed $912,000, New Leaf Counseling Services in the amount not to exceed $1,145,800, and Progress House in the amount not to exceed $2,710,400. The second action is to approve the agreement with Recovery Now, LLC, in the amount not to exceed $200,000 for substance use treatment and transitional housing from July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2020, and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign the agreement and sign subsequent amendments up to 10% of the original contract amount. It's consistent with agreement to the subject matter and scope of work with risk management and county council concurrence. So a little background, I know you guys are familiar with these contracts. Effective and appropriate substance use treatment saves lives and reduces costs in many spectrums across Placer County. Placer County is committed to improving access to the appropriate levels of care for those in need across our county. The numbers of people seeking substance use treatment grew 12.9% from fiscal year 15-16 to 16-17. Placer projects this number to grow even more significantly in the next few years as need, access to services, and the various providers we have hope to expand. We are in the process of implementing a county-specific drug Medi-Cal organized delivery system through the 1115 waiver to better meet this need in a cost-effective manner by leveraging federal funding. Placer County's plan has been approved by the Department of Health Care Services and the Center for Medicaid Services. The adult system of care is currently in an RFP process to secure providers necessary for the continuum of care that is mandated through this drug Medi-Cal organized delivery system. It's expected that HHS will return to this board in September for approval of the contracts with DHCS and subsequent contracts with providers to fully implement the waiver. In the meantime, our dedicated providers in Placer County are currently under our state plan offering medicated assisted treatment, methadone, withdrawal management, residential, outpatient to adults and adolescents, and transitional housing combined with outpatient treatment. Providers use a minimum of 2 evidence-based treatment curriculums within their programs. Our contracts demonstrate Placer's continued emphasis on collaboration with criminal justice, mental health, human services, children's system of care to leverage available funding and provide the most cost-effective and appropriate care to those headed for or already within our systems. Placer County partnerships and community providers work together to help residents achieve recovery. The aggregate 2-year amount for these 6 agreements is $18,811,400. Funding for these mandated services is comprised of 90% federal and state sources and 10% required county general fund match. $9,405,700 is included in this in fiscal year 18-9 proposed budget, and the remaining will be included in the department's 19-20 budget. And I'm available for any questions you have.
Supervisor Euler.
Yep, a couple things. First of all, I was struck on this item by not only the number of providers with whom we're contracting, but the disparity in the contract amounts. And what I'm curious about is, are these contracts specific to different phases of different types of addiction?
Yes.
And so we're actually moving them from one provider in one phase of recovery to another provider, and hence the different contract amounts.
Correct. They're all very different and have actually different funding sources available to them depending on which regulations they operate under. So just like you said, there might be a big dollar amount in one that maybe it's a bigger provider that has multiple levels of care that individuals are moving between. And then we have small providers who are very specialized and only offer one service, and so that dollar amount is going to be lower.
Okay. And we make that determination ourselves as to where they're referred for initial care, and then keeping track of them through whatever care they ultimately end up receiving?
Yeah, actually, it's pretty exciting that the whole state, anyone who's going with the waiver, is all going to adopt the same way of determining level of care through the ASAM, which is what we call it. And it helps us determine which level of care is most appropriate for the person, given their circumstances and how far along they are in their addiction and what they're addicted to. And so we utilize that tool in a centralized screening clinic method, and we have our providers all trained in it to be able to redo that assessment, to be able to move them through that continuum of care seamlessly. And it's going to get even better as we make these avatar improvements I talked about with the MHSA funding, and we're able to better track these beneficiaries and work and communicate with our providers in a way to make sure that we're all doing that seamlessly.
Okay, and does that also lead us to data that allows us to actually quantify success? Because when I see, number one, the number growing, on the one hand, you can say, well, that's a good thing, more people are seeking treatment. Well, clearly, it might also be a bad thing that more people need treatment. But then I'm wondering about the duplication between those numbers year over year. How many people are we seeing when we refer to fiscal year 15-16 and then to year 16-17? I don't imagine that the 4,300 people is unique of the 3,800 people that were seen the year before.
Probably
so we
not.
probably have. So what I'm really curious about is kind of our success metrics. How are we tracking these folks? Because in these treatments, we're spending per person on average a little over $4,000 a year in assisting them with some stage of recovery. How's it working? What kind of success are we having? So I'd be curious to see where that kind of shakes out.
Yeah, so we have some of our smaller programs we can demonstrate, but as a system, we haven't had great outcomes data. Through the waiver, it's a requirement. Again, so it's another statewide tool that's being developed by UCLA that every single county will have to utilize with their beneficiaries to demonstrate outcomes. So in the next year or two, as we start getting those requirements met and all of those surveys completed by our beneficiaries, we will be able to come back with better outcomes in the future.
Good. Thank you.
All righty. Any other questions or comments? Anyone in the audience wish to address us? Seeing none, we'll ask the board for approval. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 7F, substance abuse treatment and related agreements with multiple providers, and 2, approve agreement with Recovery Now LLC. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the item is moved. Thank you, Twyla. Oh, it's back to you again.
Yes, I'm going to apologize in advance. There are a few items here that I'm going to be standing up here talking about. So,
okay, no apology necessary.
All right, so Twyla Abrahamson, Director of Children's System of Care, and I will let you know when I am speaking for the Children's System solely, or if I'm presenting a joint item with the Adult System of Care as well. This one is a Children's System of Care item only. So CSOC is mandated by the State Department of Health Care Services to provide a range of mental health services for children and youth. You just heard about one of our ways to do that. Some of these young people, however, have such deep emotional trauma and behavioral mental health needs that around the clock, 24/7 intensive services are required. These services are provided through residential treatment centers, soon to be all known as short-term residential therapeutic programs, or STRTPs, 12 of which are listed in this umbrella contract. As you've heard in prior board items, Continuum of Care Reform, AB 403, which I've brought before you a number of times before, is anticipated to lessen the overall numbers of children statewide who will require these residential services over time, and lessen the time children and youth spend out of their communities. However, at this point, there is still a need for the program some of the time for very troubled youth, and these residential programs effectively served 37 Placer youth last year. Placer County historically has had low rates of residential placements, less than 3% of all youth, compared to statewide numbers of nearly 10%. So we're requesting that the board take the following action. Approve these annual intensive services contracts in the amount of $450,000, and for those of you that are tracking, this is a significant reduction from prior years. This includes federal and state funding of $391,500, or 87%, with a required county general fund match of $58,500, or 13%. And the funding is included in the department's fiscal year 18-19 proposed budget. We're also asking that the board approve the annual provider list and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to amend the list of providers and sign provider agreements and sign subsequent amendments. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on this item.
Questions from board members? Seeing none, anyone in the audience? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to board for approval. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 7G, Intensive Residential Mental Health Services Umbrella Contract for Group Homes Providers. Approve annual contracts with multiple entities, and approve authorized Director of Health and Human Service to amend the list of providers as long as any amendments are reflected in the fiscal year 2019-2020 lists. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, we will now move to item 7H. Hang in there.
Twyla Abrahamson again for the Children's System of Care. A little background. California counties are required to convene and support a local child abuse prevention council. For 30 years, Kids First has effectively delivered community-based outreach, education, and public service information to parents, caregivers, early childhood providers, and other professionals. They have provided direct counseling, family education, and assistance in accessing other services for caregivers which foster independence, and has provided assistance to families and parents to advocate effectively for their children in obtaining health, education, medical, dental, mental health, and other services. Kids First has also operated the Family Resource Centers in Auburn and Roseville, and has been responsible for data gathering, analysis, and reporting for the entire county network of Family Resource Centers, including the North Tahoe Family Resource Center. Last year, the use of these dollars helped Kids First serve over 5,800 families, parents, or caregivers, assisted them to maintain their valued independence and self-sufficiency. These services have further enabled parents and their caregivers to maintain their autonomy and prevent child abuse and neglect, which also avoids the increased costs associated with further involvement with the child welfare or juvenile delinquency systems. So we are requesting that the board take the following action. Approve a contract with Kids First to provide child abuse prevention services and operation of family resource centers from July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2019 for a total amount not to exceed $795,323, and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign the agreement and to sign amendments not to exceed $50,000 consistent with the subject matter and scope of work with risk management and county council concurrence. The full amount of this contract is funded with the Children's Trust Fund revenues, along with state and federal revenues. No county general funds are required. It is included in the fiscal year 2018-19 proposed budget. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on this item, and thank you for consideration.
Any questions from board members? Seeing none. Anyone in the audience? Seeing none. Bring it back to board for approval. Second. This is item 7H, Child Abuse Prevention Services and Family Resource Centers, contract with Kids First Corporation. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, we'll now move to item 7I, Family Advocacy Services.
Twyla Abrahams again for the record for Children's System of Care. So Placer County Health and Human Services has operated an integrated systems model of care for youth and families since 1996, which has allowed us significant flexibility in utilizing our funding streams to create family-centered, community-based programs including child welfare, mental health, and juvenile justice. This is, as you all are well aware, incredibly rare for county-based services. As part of this integrated system of care, there's been a commitment and a requirement to provide family and youth paraprofessional supports to families receiving any of these formal services. It has been demonstrated that mentoring, advocacy, education, and outreach and engagement provided by advocates who have lived experience with our systems leads to less confusion, less grievances, and shortened court proceedings. Family advocates served over 1,700 families in Placer County last year. So we're requesting that your board take the following action: approve a 2-year agreement with Mental Health America of Northern California from July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2020, in the total amount of $1,374,490, and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign the agreement and any subsequent amendments up to $50,000, consistent with the subject matter and scope, and with risk management and county council concurrence. This agreement is entirely funded with state revenues with no net county cost. The funding is included in the department's fiscal year 18-19 and 19-20 proposed budgets. So I'd also be happy to answer any questions on this item.
Questions from board members? Seeing none, anyone in the audience? Seeing none, bring it back to board for approval. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 7I, Family Advocacy Services Agreement with Mental Health America of Northern California. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 7J.
Hello again, Twyla Abrahamson. We're going through the whole continuum of mental health services today, as I'm sure you've seen. So,
okay.
In order to best meet the needs of Placer County's youth who experience serious and severe mental health challenges, but also try to keep them in their families and communities, the Children's System of Care and its partners deliver a combination of intensive in-home counseling, crisis stabilization, and mental health services to children and families. One element of this approach includes state-mandated specialty in-home crisis services called Therapeutic Behavioral Support, or TBS, which you may have heard of, which is designed to prevent the youth from entering inpatient hospitals or other institutional settings, which are often difficult to access and are, on average, more than 5 times as costly. Under this agreement, up to 140 children each year with significant mental health challenges will receive these effective and cost-saving services in-home and avoid out-of-home placements or hospital care. So we're requesting that your board take the following action: approve an agreement with Uplift Family Services for the period of July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2020 in the amount of $2,697,396 for therapeutic behavioral support and intensive specialty mental health services, and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign amendments not to exceed $50,000 of the total contract amount, consistent with the subject matter and scope of work with risk management and county council concurrence. Of the total amount, $1,343,698 is included in the department's fiscal year 18-19 proposed budget, with 94%, or $1,267,776 in state and federal funds, and $80,922 in county general fund match, which is 6%. The remainder of the total will be included in the department's fiscal year 19-20 requested budget. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and thank you for consideration.
Any questions? Anyone in the audience? We'll bring it back for approval. Moved and seconded to approve item 7J, Therapeutic Behavioral Support and Specialty Mental Health Services Agreement with Uplift Family Services. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. Would you need a cup of coffee or some water? We're doing okay?
Not getting faint yet.
Okay. All right. Item K.
All right. This is one of our favorite topics, obviously, in Placer County, and very important to us. It involves housing. However, for youth, it is recognized in unique challenges. The Children's System of Care has recognized these needs and partnered with community agencies over the years to support these vulnerable youth as they transition to adulthood. In 2014, Whole Person Learning was competitively awarded a 2-year contract pursuant to RFP number 10320 and has provided transitional housing, counseling, career education, budgeting, and other supports to over 60 youth in a highly effective manner. In addition, Whole Person Learning has provided services to at-risk youth in Placer County for over 20 years in different capacities. So we're requesting that your board take the following action: is approve a new 2-year contract with Whole Person Learning in the amount of $1,188,000 from July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2020 to provide this housing assistance and intensive services to emancipated foster youth, and to authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign amendments not to exceed $50,000 consistent with the subject matter and scope, with risk management and county council concurrence. Of the total amount, $594,000 is included in the department's fiscal year 18-19 proposed budget, and the remainder of $594,000 will be included in the department's 19-20 requested budget. The full amount of this contract is funded by state revenues, and no county general funds are required. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from board members? Seeing none. Questions from the audience? Seeing none. Bring it back for approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve item K, Transitional Housing Program Plus, contract with Whole Person Learning. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? That motion is approved. Now we'll move to item 7L.
Okay, and Twyla Abrahamson, just for the record, presenting this item jointly for the Children's and Adult System of Care, and I saved the best for last. So, bear with me. As you've heard a number of times already today, Placer County Children's and Adult System of Care are mandated to provide mental health services for children, youth, adults, ranging from outreach and engagement to outpatient community-based services to intensive in-home services to inpatient services and locked facilities. One such service, crisis intervention, works in partnership with first responders, community providers, and families, and works most effectively in community settings. Placer County served 3,245 adults and children in crisis in fiscal year 2016-17 and is on track to serve a similar number of individuals this year. In order to try and prevent inpatient psychiatric treatment, which is both expensive and traumatizing, the Adult System of Care was successful in obtaining a grant from the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission 3 years ago, which enabled ASOC to launch a mobile crisis triage team to intervene and manage crises in the community with less need for inpatient hospitalization. This grant was funded with Prop 63, known as the Mental Health Services Act funds. The ASOC mobile crisis team has successfully diverted many individuals from the emergency rooms and freed up law enforcement resources over the past 3 years. When the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission released their competitive request for proposals again this year, ASOC was able to show their positive results through actual data and submitted a new request for an enhanced team and was awarded a new adult mental health grant in the amount of $1,133,384. The Commission also put restrictions on the grant funding for this cycle to ensure that children and youth programs would be developed, and stated that 50% of the funding was dedicated to develop programs for those aged 21 and younger. Most programs in the past were focused on the adult population. Thus, in an effort to serve our youth population, the Children's System of Care reviewed crisis evaluation data and determined where the most calls for services were occurring and submitted a grant request as well. CSOC was awarded a crisis triage grant from the Commission in the amount of $1,468,049 to develop this service for children, youth, and families. The Commission also determined that mental health prevention, crisis triage, and intervention on school campuses was lacking and required development of a coordinated community response. Thus, they also released a highly competitive RFP to strengthen school, county, and community partnerships for children in grades pre-kindergarten through 12, with an emphasis on children in pre-kindergarten through 3rd. CSOC partnered with Placer County Office of Education to address the provision of mental health crisis triage and prevention services on highly impacted campuses and was successfully awarded a third grant from the Commission in the amount of $7,500,000. Placer was only one of 4 counties statewide awarded these funds. So we are requesting from your board that you adopt a resolution approving the following actions. Approve a revenue agreement with the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission for the Adult Mental Health Triage Grant Program for July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2021 in the amount of $1,133,384. Authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign the agreement with Risk Management and County Council concurrence, and to sign subsequent amendments up to $50,000 consistent with the agreement's subject matter and scope of work, again with Risk Management and County Council concurrence. Second action, or would you like to take them each separately? I'm going through each of the grants.
Should we go do separate, or?
We can take them all.
Take them all?
Do all of them.
All right, so second, approve a revenue agreement with the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission for the Child Mental Health Triage Grant Program from July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2021 in the amount of $1,468,049 and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign the agreement with Risk Management and County Council concurrence and to sign subsequent amendments up to $50,000 consistent with the agreement's subject matter and scope of work. And third, approve a revenue agreement with the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission for this County School Mental Health Triage Grant Program from July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2022 in the amount of $7,500,000 and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign the agreement with Risk Management and County Council concurrence, and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign subsequent amendments up to $50,000 consistent with the agreement's subject matter and scope of work, again with Risk Management and County Council concurrence. All revenues and expenditures for fiscal year 2018-2019 will be included in the department's final budget adjustments, resulting in no additional net county cost. Additionally, revenues and expenditures for subsequent fiscal years will be included in the department's future budget for the respective years. So I would also be happy to answer any questions about these, and thank you for your consideration.
Supervisor Euler?
Yeah, my questions on this are similar to the questions on the substance abuse related item, and that is, when we're talking about these triage related services, first of all, you identified 3,245 adults and children that received services in 16-17. Were those unique individuals, or were those occurrences that we were dealing with?
They were not necessarily unique occurrences. These were actually 5150 evaluations, so someone over the period of a year could have had multiple 5150 evaluations.
It's
yes.
not necessarily 3,245 adults and children that were in crisis. That was the number of occurrences of a crisis where we intervened.
That was actually the number of evaluations that we conducted. There actually could have been many, many more crises that we intervened that didn't lead to an evaluation.
Okay. And especially now that we're reaching down and working on the children's side of it prior to them reaching adulthood, knowing that obviously a lot of mental health related things kind of manifest themselves in puberty, so good time to get a hold of it and track it through. What are we doing to actually track repeat occurrences and be able to somehow measure whether we're being impactful and moving folks out of, I mean, these are people you're talking about that are essentially in some kind of a crisis mode. So if they had a management structure, they've left that management structure, that it's been abandoned for whatever reason. Now we're back dealing with them in crisis mode. So it's great that we're getting the grants and all the rest, but how are we moving it toward limiting those incidents of crises, managing people or assisting people with their management so that we eliminate those situations of crisis, and then setting something that says, at this point the person is more or less graduated and moved on. So that's kind of what I'm looking for.
So I think what you're talking about is probably how do you progress through the entire mental health system of care? Similar to what you were talking about in terms of level of care with the substance abuse.
Exactly.
Prior to even these grants, though, just to address a piece of your question, when we have someone that has been evaluated at the hospital, because either we do them ourselves or our overnight contractor does those, we know who those individuals are, and we know how many times then that they've had an evaluation prior. We track those individuals. If someone who's not even a resident ends up in our hospitals for an evaluation, we call those folks back both on the adult and the children's side with a clinician to find out if they are in services. If they aren't in services, to try to encourage them to come to services, of course, because they're all voluntary at that particular moment in time. And we can see the trends of how many hospitalizations folks have when they get into services, and then their lengths of services. So all of that does exist in our data systems. So you ask, how are we knowing some impact is being made? So going to one of the prior items, I can let you know in terms of our group home placements, those trend downward every single year. And that means our high level of services to prevent folks going out of the community and into group homes is actually working. We know that. We know how those kids progress through those systems. In outpatient services, of course, we do have outcome measures to talk about whether they are feeling more connected to their community, whether their clinical symptomatology has actually decreased over time. And we have some of these children who then, of course, end up, if they are in a pretty severe classification, that do have needs as they go into the adult system of care. And so we do handoffs there. I won't misspeak and let you think that some mental health services aren't needed for some people throughout their lifespan. And that does happen. And we know who those individuals are. We're very familiar with them, and we're very familiar with their families. The somewhat exciting thing about this particular grant is the recognition is that we can get into the younger and younger ages in the school systems, which is not something that we've been tremendously successful doing. And doing this through a collaborative manner puts an onus on the schools themselves. The idea through these, and I'll be bringing back information to your board about how these develop, what we see as they go along, because obviously we're going to be developing these with our community, or our partner through PCOE and school districts. The idea is having some wellness centers on campuses, which have throughout some research has shown that they're very, very effective because it's a non-stigmatizing place to connect with people. And hopefully what we're doing is some of the outcomes we're hoping that we never see, because first of all, we'd love to do ourselves out of business in the mental health business, the substance use business, and certainly for me in the child protection. But we're really trying to change the trajectory of somebody's life. And if we can have less incidences of them needing repeated care, if we can lessen the amount of times that they need to come back to our systems, if there's a longer period of time that people exist in recovery, then we're doing our jobs.
Yep. And downstream, the less we need folks like the Gathering Inn to provide the services we just contracted with them for.
Certainly, that's always the hope.
Yeah. Thank you.
Supervisor Wygant.
Yeah, just at some point, I think a more comprehensive presentation to the board about what we've learned and what we're learning, and some of that data I think would be really interesting, how it connects to some of the other services that we provide. I think all of us would be interested in hearing, and the public as well.
Happy to do that.
Thanks.
All right, seeing no more questions from board members, anyone in the audience wish to address us on this item? Bring it back for approval. We've been asked to approve item L, 1A, B, and C. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the item is moved. Thank you for your diligence.
Thank you all as well.
Now we'll move to item 8, workers' compensation claims budget revision. And this is, you're not Lori Walsh, it's Sherry.
Yes. Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the board. Sherry Chapman, your Assistant HR Director. We have an item before you. We are requesting you to approve a budget revision, increasing expenditures and corresponding revenues in the amount of approximately $1.4 million to fund workers' compensation claims and recognize resulting insurance refunds, including revisions, moving spending authority to different object levels within the budget. The board obviously previously approved our fiscal year 17-18 final budget for workers' compensation that included amounts for claims and insurance refunds. Due to unanticipated increase in claims and corresponding refunds, These budgeted amounts have been exceeded. As such, our department is requesting your approval to increase our expenditures and revenues to coincide with projected claims and refunds through the fiscal year end. And this budget revision will have no additional impact on the county's general fund.
All right, any questions for Sherry? Anybody left in the audience that has a question? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for approval. It's moved and seconded to approve item 8, Human Resources Workers' Compensation Claims Budget Revision. This is a roll call. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Duran. Wygant. Euler. Holmes.
Yes. All right, it has been approved. So thank you, Sherry. Now we'll move to item 9, Library, Purchase of Library Materials, Multiple Vendors. Mary George. And Brentwood. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Holmes and members of the board. Mary George, your Director of Library Services. Manager Brett Wood, to request your authority to utilize the exception to competition noted in the Purchasing Policy Manual 1.3D, which allows for the purchase of books, publications, subscriptions, recordings, motion picture films, and annual books and periodicals without competitive bidding. This flexibility will enable the library to solicit the best market price based on our needs at any particular time and enable us to order from any vendor without restrictions. The library's core function is to provide up-to-date library materials and services reflective of community interests to your constituents, delivered from 9 libraries and a bookmobile. Professional staff are continuously purchasing new materials and replenishing resources in a variety of formats, including digital items to meet customer demand. Often the competitive bid process is not responded to by all potential providers in all formats due to a variety of reasons. At this time, there are no providers in Placer County for library materials. I respectfully request your approval and authority for our procurement manager to award contracts to various vendors for library materials in the aggregate amount of $500,000 for fiscal year 2018-2019 and up to the final amount authorized in the final budget for fiscal year 2019-2020. Funding for these purchases is included in the library's fiscal year 2018-2019 requested budget and is anticipated to be included in the final budget for fiscal year 2019-2020. Brett and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Any questions, Supervisor Euler?
Yeah, I'm curious, when you said there are no providers of library materials, providing materials in the county, what does that mean?
It means that we can't get a substantial discount, or we can't get our materials. Often we get our materials pre-processed from large vendors like Baker and Taylor or Ingram, and we contract with those vendors with a very deep discount of 40%.
Oh.
It doesn't mean we don't buy from Barnes & Noble or from other book vendors in the area. In fact, we do. We buy a lot of local materials, especially about Tahoe, from local Tahoe vendors. We just don't buy, up to $500,000. There's nobody to award that contract to in Placer.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments, board members? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item 9, purchase of library materials from multiple vendors. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the item is moved. Thank you. You're welcome. And now we move to item 10, Public Works and Facilities, Middle Fork Project Joint Powers Authority Summary of Operations for 2017.
Good afternoon, Honorable Board and Board members, Chairman and Board members. Brett Story, Public Works and Facilities, here to provide you your annual update. Supervisor Holmes and Supervisor Wygant serve on this committee, so they've heard this information before a couple of times. We try to give it to them as often as we can and get their advice. Again, purpose is to provide the whole board the update on the audit's been completed, so now you'll see the operating year of 2017 with also a projection of where the project is heading. The year in review. On the operations side, this was the 5th year after taking over for PG&E where PCWA does the scheduling in the market to optimize for water and power. There was a successful switchover. They hired Northern California Power Agency to actually do the 24-hour operations so that we don't have to hire people to do that. They specialize in that. That happened this midnight 01 of 2017 or 2018. There have been no issues whatsoever with that transition over through NCPA, as well as with the California Independent System Operator with payments or with any issues. There was one small one, which was about $4 million, but it just ends up being something hiccups. It takes a couple of weeks to a month. They iron it out. They pay us our money. And actually, our payments now have become a lot faster under PG&E. It used to take about 6-8 weeks to get paid. We get paid weekly now by CAISO, so it actually, from a cash flow standpoint, works much better than it did before. The system availability was very high with minimal unplanned outages, as it is almost every year. They do a fine job of keeping it up and running. On the marketing revenue side, we were well above normal generation, increased both the energy and the non-energy revenue. And what I mean by that is we sell energy into the market on a per hour or per day basis, but we also sell things like capacity and carbon credits, which is a non-energy item but still related, which we still can get revenue for. Because it was such a large water year the year before, an abundance of all that hydro generation throughout the West, there was negative market pricing, increased dramatically over the year during the spring, but then luckily for revenue, there were a lot of hot summer nights and days, and so that pushed the markets up to record highs. So we were on one hand down, on the other hand up. So it tends to work that way in this market. Can't see this, but essentially this is from the audit, the budget and actual sheets. The salient points are that the total gross revenue was higher than forecast by 42%. And I'll remind you all that the way we forecast is we take 80% of an average year so that we are very conservative because you just don't know what's going to happen with the water year. We approve the budget in October before we actually see the water. In that year, we were the highest year ever, so we had increase of revenue by 42%. We also had a small decrease in expenditures by about 4%. All in all, we ended up contributing close to $6.65 million towards the reserve funding. So that was an excellent year. A little bit about the reserves for the Middle Fork Project Finance Authority. We have an operating reserve of a little over $25 million, and essentially that is 1 year of operations. Should something tragic, drastic happen, we still can operate the system and figure out how to make it work and still pay all the bills. The emergency reserve is $2 million fully funded, and that is essentially to pay all of the deductibles for that business interruption insurance, or if a fire happened or something like that, we could get back to bringing revenue in on paying those deductibles. And we're actually going through a process now to see if that's the right amount. It may be too much, too little, but we've got another project going to find that out. The capital reserve is partially funded. It's close to $17 million. Our target is 20, and that's generally a year's worth of capital projects. So particularly over the next 5 years, that's what's going to probably be like. So we need a little over $3 million to fill those reserves.
Brett, I just had a question.
Certainly.
With your consent, Mr. Chairman. On your operating reserve, as well as your other reserves, are those cash in the bank?
Yes, sir, they are. They are by board policy to put cash in the bank. When PG&E handed it over to us, there were $0 in the bank. In fact, we had to go borrow.
So we haven't considered, or I guess we could consider laying some of that off on insurance. Is that a possibility?
We actually, that's the study we're going through now. We're updating the insurance. It's hard to insure what we have out there. It's we just got the.
I get it. It's business interruption. It's a different type of.
Right. Well, we actually have
policy.
several kinds of insurance.
Sure. I mean, we're going through the same thing over at WPWA.
Yes.
Of determining what we can do liability-wise, because
Right.
we have $7 or $8 million set aside, and we're kind of thinking, well, do we really need that much?
Right.
You know, can we lay some of it off? On a big carrier. So.
Right. We just, as a matter of fact, we finally
Seems
were
like
able to get someone to estimate what the assets are worth, and it significantly went up. It's $1.8 billion worth of assets from top to bottom, and now we're trying to find the correct insurance and the right business interruption, et cetera, liability, everything to go with that. So you're right, it's complicated.
We chose that number because, again, we were trying to be conservative to make sure we were never having to come borrow from the county or PCWA or anything like that. Again, back to the reserves by Middle Fork Project Finance Authority policy. All three of those reserves must be fully funded before net revenues can be distributed. Again, if we were to fill that, if we had, and I'll talk about revenue in a minute, but if we were able to fill those reserves with $3 million more and we had leftover monies, that could kick into if the board itself chose to release funds for distribution. And that formula, as you all know, but I always repeat it every year, is 50% debt prepayment. We've got the debt down to about $82 million now. It was up at 88. We've been paying it down. And then a quarter would go to Placer County and a quarter would go to Placer County Water Agency. You all have your own policy on what to do with those distributions that was adopted several years ago. We hope to see something soon. I can't answer when because I know Kirk's going to ask me. He's always asked me. Again, the reserve contributions were higher than expected, which was a good thing, and we had a little bit of savings, so that allowed us to put that in. Hopefully this year we'll do better than projections. These are our projections. On the hydrology side, the budgeted forecast, again, we go 80%. Looks like precipitation is going to be about 85% average, so roughly what we thought it would be. The good news is the reservoirs will fill and will meet the expected carryover levels at the end of the year. So we're great shape water-wise in the county. There'll be 7 days a week rafting for the public this season, so that will all flow correctly, and they'll be excited about that, and that'll help bring people to the county. On the energy side, the energy market prices should remain steady, but probably about 10% lower than last year, but it looks pretty steady across. The solar market does create a soft pricing, but it's not as dramatic as last year. And this hot summer is expected to lead to higher third quarter prices, so we could get some extra benefit out of that. And again, the Middle Fork project's well positioned to offset the potential negative prices that happen in the market. Because our resources are flexible. We can actually stop and not produce electricity and wait till later in the day when solar goes down and the price goes up. We can then generate then and make more money to it. So because we don't have direct customers, we're in a much better position. On the revenue side, precipitation is around the budget. Energy prices are lower than forecasted. Our budget is right around $40 million this year. There are some conditions that changed from last year to this year. There was a drop in the value of non-energy products from the last 4 or 5 years. And in our contract with PG&E, they were required to give us the $15 million number independent of the market. They signed up for that. The contract ended. We now believe that same $15 million is worth about $6 million in the market. And we're doing some things to try to get ahead of that and get more money back from that, but that's going to take a while to build back up. The net effect of the revenues, we believe, with everything I've talked about, the revenues should be somewhere between 42 and 45 million, but certainly significantly less. The year before was almost 62 million. So what does that mean? It means we'll likely be able to fill those reserves. We'll be somewhere around filling those reserves, spending all the money we need to spend to keep the project moving forward.
What are we doing with regards to storage? Have we looked into that at all? Energy storage?
Energy storage?
Yeah.
Interesting point. We are right now, one of the obligations we have is to develop the strategic plan for this project, and we are right now writing it, and that is the emphasis of the strategic plan. We are looking at a number of things. Of course, the board will have to approve it, and we'll have to move forward with looking at some projects. But what we're looking at are a couple of things that have to do with, essentially, the state is looking at battery storage, right? And they're looking at actually a physically battery. What we're looking at are a couple of different ways to do it, and that's utilizing the water in different times of day to make energy at different times of day. And that could be done through a number of different technologies. So that's what we'll be looking at over the next couple of years to try to position ourselves in that market. The other heavy piece is regulatory and legislative. Every time we seem to get ahead of the game, they close the market on us and say, no, we don't want you to make that much money. We want you to bring you back to earth. And so they'll start, for example, right now, solar is a must-take. So that means if you generate solar, they have to buy it no matter what. Now, they do get hit with some negative prices, but they also get subsidies that pay for those negative prices. So The solar producers are actually in great shape for that. But what will happen over time is as the state moves what they've projected to be 100% carbon-free, there could be a time when if there's no natural gas producing, which is a 24/7, the only 24/7 would be hydroelectric power. They could actually force us to run at negative prices to meet that. And so what we're trying to do is balance that by saying we're gonna have water and energy blend with some new technologies and look at how do we balance that so that we're protected from whatever our friends down in Sacramento attempt to do to us. But you'll hear more over the next couple of years. We've just begun that.
The only reason I ask is because I know there's a lot of innovation on microgrids and different types of technologies. That might be something that Pioneer might want to.
Right. I think they are looking at that.
As far as storage, because that seems to be the problem. Is that
right.
If you have storage, and then you can take advantage of the arbitrage that goes on with purchases. So.
The other piece we're looking at, again, in the strategic plan, going forward, is pricing, saving money on electricity. For example, PCWA in the Middle Fork project pays PG&E at certain times for electricity. So what we're looking to do is behind-the-meter innovation so that we never have to pay PG&E for electricity, which is at 18-20 cents a kilowatt. We can make it for far less than that. So we're looking at both sides of that equation to try to lower costs. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I think I'm on the next one. So the project itself, done a number of things that have been quite productive this year. On the risk reduction side, the North American Electric Reliability Corporation and the Western Electric Coordinating Council regulate safety and procedures, et cetera. We just recently passed and are operating at the highest level. We passed the year before too, but this was the most significant because we implemented a number of things so it's safe operating environment, works well, is coordinated. Again, I mentioned the control center operations with Northern California Power Agencies are fully functioning, works great. Much less time spent than we had to with PG&E. They know what they're doing. They take care of problems for us. There is a new insurance solution, which I talked about. We're looking at the way it turns out, because the asset's larger, it puts us into a different position and pool. We actually are going to get some cost benefit out of it, and we think for the same amount of money, we can actually buy more insurance to cover us. So again, that's part of that study going on. So we're going to try it for this year and then do the analysis to find out where that number should be. So that's happening. In fact, I think it's about to happen or just happened. We move forward with a new profile on that. On the infrastructure side, the first FERC license requirement, even though we don't have the new FERC license yet, because of the probable maximum flood changed, and we were required to do much more work. We have to do something called a dam core raise because of the spillway. We're raising the spillway to capture more water over time. So that's a $4 million project that we were not aware we were going to have to do when we got into this business. So that actually is starting work this week, I think, up there in Hellhole. So that's going to be all summer long. They're going to do that work. It won't affect really any of the operations, a little bit of the boating, but it won't affect anything else. There was a system flexibility upgrade at the main powerhouse turbine governor, and the reason I mention that is because now as we move forward, we're in some of these contracts where the California Independent System Authority actually takes control of. They pay us extra. They take control of our system, and it has to have the flexibility to start and stop in a much quicker fashion. So this actually brings us into a higher pay or a higher revenue category by getting this work done. So that was I think just completed this spring. And then there's a cost reduction upgrade at the other main powerhouse plant cooling water intake. Again, details, but what it does is automates the system to remove silt and woody debris, which, as I brought you last year, we were down quite a bit because of that. So this should help on those times when the river there's a lot of turbidity in the river or logs coming down or woody debris. So we hope that will help with both those solutions. A little bit more on the relicensing process. Seems like I bring you this piece every year. We were done in 2012. We're still waiting for the state to approve. We understand they're giving us we double secret promise you this year we're going to get it done. And we're starting to prepare the budget for 2019 to take into account that we will receive the license, which means there are a number of betterment upgrades that we are required to do within the first 5 years of the license. We're working with the Forest Service and other agencies to make sure all of those plans are in place so that we can hit the ground running as soon as we get the license and meet those deadlines by FERC. On the energy product sales, of course, with the ending of PG&E, we went out with an RFP and chose Tenaska Power Services to sell all of our non-energy products. They were the winners out of, I think, 4 or 5. We initially started with 6 or 7, and then we whittled it down to the top 3 and did further interviews, and they by far, we felt like could do us the best going forward, and they've done a magnificent job. They've sold 99.9 of all the non-energy projects for the year and still have the capability to maybe sell them all. And they actually sold a portion of that to the Pioneer CCA. And actually the way that works, so you know, Northern California Power Agency, who schedules our power, is actually, and I think you that are on that board know that, they actually schedule for the CCA. So it's a nice little symbiotic relationship. We can meet their needs every year, and we actually reserve enough to meet their needs for every year. All of the energy is being sold in the CAISO market this year, and that's expanded, and I won't go into the details of that, but that gets more complicated, but we have a very good staff at PCWA that understands it. And then this year, Tenaska helped us sell, and we actually sold it to other CCAs in the Bay Area, the first of its kind U.S. energy market sale of carbon-free attributes. What does that mean? It means for every we charge $1 for every megawatt of power that's sold. That means we have to, on a piece of paper, say, we sold you this carbon-free credit, which is essentially all our power is carbon-free. And so it's a piece of paper, essentially, but it allows them to claim that, to say, look, we're getting our power and our non-energy projects from specifically carbon-free. Nowhere else, that hasn't happened in this country, so we're pretty excited about that. And then on the forest management side, we've had great success so far. We're trying to, through the FERC license itself, we're required to clean up some of the watershed around the reservoirs and around the project. What amounts to probably somewhere between $3 and $5 million we would have to spend over time to do so. We are participating with a much broader partnership, including the Forest Service, the Nature Conservancy, the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, PCWA and ourselves, obviously, to tackle, instead of a few thousand acres, to tackle 25,000 acres and to actually do it in an ecologic fashion that makes perfect sense, that lowers the fire risk, which of course for us, fire's bad, but worse is after the fire, all that silt and wood would slide down in the reservoir. We'd have to spend hundreds or tens of millions of dollars excavating it. So we're looking at that as a risk reduction. The project itself is, we are actually participating in the NEPA itself. We actually, June 15th, we pass everything over to the Forest Service. They go through the public. We hope to have that all concluded by the end of the year and start operations next year. Just last week, I got a call from the U.S. Forest Service. Earlier in the year, we had visited with the new chief of the Forest Service, and her statement was, well, you guys are doing such a great job. We can't not match what you're doing. And she put it into action. It looks like we're going to get $1 million, $1.5 million for next year's operations any day. They're supposed to call me or text me or email me with the paperwork that moves the money to us so that we can start that operation. And of course, we have our Middle Fork dollars, and we have private funding coming in from the Nature Conservancy, and the Sierra Nevada Conservancy has given us a grant. We hope to, I just am in the process of completing a request for $3.5 million on the greenhouse gas funds. So we believe we're getting close to funding the whole project. Again, for our amount we would have spent anyways, we're getting much more for our money. So we're pretty excited about that. And then, as I always do, just give you a chart of what the hydrology is. And you see that red dotted line, which is average. Over the 55-year history, I think it's been averaged twice. So average doesn't really mean what you think it means, to quote a famous movie. But you can see how it goes up and down. Again, that's why we conservatively budget. Average is about 1 million megawatt hours. We've had a low of a little over 200,000. High, which was the year before, 1.8. This year we anticipate about 750,000 megawatt hours. So we're certainly less than average, and we're half as much as we had the year before. So it's just a perspective, just to remind you all where we're at on that, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Questions from board members? Supervisor Euler.
Yep. Jumping back to, where are my notes? Oh, under 2018 projections. You've got California energy market prices should remain steady but down 10% from last year?
Yes, the natural gas has not rebounded, and that sets the price for the market. So our energy experts believe that it's about 10% down from last year. Last year, remember, came up from the year before, and so it's now bringing down a little bit.
All right, that's interesting. I hadn't seen that on the Pioneer side. We're not projecting that, so it's good to know. And then you note on the revenue side the drop in the value of the non-energy products from the past 5 years. What specifically are we talking about there?
Well, it's capacity and it's RPS value.
Right.
We had a fixed contract with PG&E that paid us $15 million provided we met a minimum amount.
Okay.
Actually, each year we didn't meet it. Of the 5 years, we only met it twice. So we got about $12 to $13 million of that. Well, that contract's gone away. About 1 year into that contract, the market shifted, and it wasn't worth anywhere near $15 million. It was worth more like 7 or 8. Well, now it's sort of leveled out. We believe the same value when we sell it all independent. It's about $6 million.
Okay.
That's
all
what
right.
that's.
So now, that's what I was wondering is we're just now realizing the market.
Yes,
shift
we've
that
been
took place.
comforted
All
for a
right.
few years from our friends at PG&E. And we're actually looking at this year, as the two supervisors know, we're going to move forward with the ability to sell in the forward markets. It actually reduces risk from this price volatility we're seeing, and we believe we can make some of that money back up so that the total overall annual rate, we only do about 20% of our portfolio that way. At least that's the way staff is projecting the rules. Board still has to approve. But yeah, our goal is to try to claw back some of those dollars.
Thank you.
All righty. Any other comments or questions? Anyone in the audience want to address us on this? There's no action taken, just an update. Thank you, Brett, for a very comprehensive upgrade.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you, Brett. And now it's time for the bridge guy.
Yes.
Mr. Matt Randall.
I'm going to say I made it up here before noon, so I'm going to say good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Chairman Holmes and board members. So excited to be here. So Matt Randall, Senior Engineer with the Department of Public Works and Facilities, and this morning we're asking you to authorize the Director of Public Works and Facilities or designee to enter into a high-cost agreement with Caltrans for the bridge replacement project on Walerga Road at Dry Creek, and to return to you, the board, with a finance plan for your consideration prior to advertising for construction bids. And I just want to note, too, that the draft agreement, and then we provided a detailed expenditure plan and also the Caltrans policy on file at the clerk of the board. So, this project, it's been a long time coming. We've worked on it for a while. The existing bridge actually floods regularly every couple of years. It's very narrow. The roadway to the north has been widened to 4 lanes. So what is needed and what we're proposing ultimately is to build a bridge that's higher, that won't flood, that's wider, that'll meet the geometrics of the roadway that's out there, and basically that meets all current standards. So our design is nearly complete, and our goal is actually to have the project ready to advertise this fall so that construction could begin this summer. And the last item that we have is this high-cost agreement with Caltrans. So just a couple of words on high-cost agreements. Before we did the Forest Hill Bridge a few years ago, this policy wasn't in place. But bridge projects now that have federally participating amounts of greater than $20 million require this high-cost agreement. And Walerga Road is $35.5 million. So typically, with HBP projects, Highway Bridge Program projects, all of the federal monies are obligated up front, which is not the way that it works with these higher cost projects. So essentially what the high cost agreement does is spread the federal obligations over several years depending on need and what's available. And it also requires us to use what's called advanced construction, which allows us to proceed with construction and incur costs just like a regular federal aid project would, but we use local dollars to actually pay the bills until the federal dollars are available for reimbursement. So we're basically fronting our local dollars for federal dollars. So then on page 2, actually, figure 1, it actually shows a table of our estimated construction expenditures and the various funding obligations. Bottom line is that based on our construction estimates, we would incur about $20 million of locally fronted costs by the end of 2020. That's if we proceeded next year with construction before it would be reimbursed. So basically our conceptual proposal would be to fund these expenditures using the various county traffic mitigation fee programs. And then when we're reimbursed later that year, we would pay back the fee programs. We've already met with the auditor controller and talked to him about the conceptual plan. He's agreed to work with us to set up the loans the right way. I also just want to be clear, we're just asking for your authorization for this high cost agreement, which, it doesn't commit us to construction. It just basically sets up the funding and the plan. And so, but we need this plan to lock in the funding and also just proceed with our authorization process with Caltrans and the Fed. So without this agreement, we're basically, we're on hold for now. So a couple of words also about advanced construction. We've utilized advanced construction in the past on much smaller amounts, and it's always been reimbursed. And Caltrans also has told us that to their knowledge, other local agencies use advanced construction, and it always is reimbursed. There's some risk that our funding wouldn't be reimbursed on schedule if the current federal transportation bill isn't extended or renewed. But our understanding is that with other agencies who have utilized these high-cost agreements, they've always been reimbursed either on schedule or ahead of schedule. And some of those agencies include the City of Yuba City on their 5th Street Bridge Replacement project over the Feather River, City of Tracy on the 11th Street Bridge project in their town, and then the City of Los Angeles, too, on their 6th Street project. So it's used by a lot of different local agencies. So with that, just would open it up to any questions.
Questions, Supervisor Durant?
Yeah, just to summarize, you're just saying that this is just a different way for us to obtain the money. There is some risk.
That's right.
But the tradition is that these things do eventually get paid.
That's right. Yep.
Any other comments, questions? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item B, bridge replacement project on Willerger, that one road at Dry Creek, and authorize high cost agreement with Caltrans. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none, we'll now move to item C, Brewer Road over Pleasant Grove Creek Bridge Replacement Project.
All right, so with this, another bridge item, we're asking you to approve a budget revision for the Brewer Road over Pleasant Grove Creek Bridge Replacement Project in the Department of Public Works and Facilities budget to increase appropriations and offsetting revenues in the amount of $1 million for a total fiscal year 2017-18 budget of $2 million. And this project is 100% funded by the Federal Highway Bridge Program. So last fall, you awarded a contract to Viking Construction, and they proceeded, and they've been doing well. And in fact, this season, we've actually been able to start construction early. We started construction in April. They've already removed the existing bridge and constructed the foundations. So really, it's a positive thing. I think the hope is that we'll get the bridge done sooner and the road open sooner. But the gist of it is that we had some unanticipated expenditures this fiscal year. The entire project is actually on budget. The project spans multiple fiscal years, so essentially what we're asking for is to move budget authority from next fiscal year forward to this year to cover the expenses that occurred just because we started construction earlier this summer. So with that, open it up to any questions.
Any questions? All right. Any questions? Nobody out there? No, we need 4 votes, right?
Yeah, can we pass this until Kirk comes?
Yeah, we'll have to.
Yeah. Okay.
When the supervisor, we have to have 4
Too
votes.
quick.
Yeah.
All right.
So, hang on, we'll just.
Yep. No problem.
All right. I know you want to get this job done.
Yeah.
So we will go ahead and move. Can we move to item 11 then? Yeah. To the sheriff. Mr. Giacomini, please come forward and give your presentation regarding Placer County Sheriff's Law Enforcement and Services contract with the City of Colfax.
I would love to. Good morning, Supervisor Holmes, members of the board, Mr. Leopold, Mr. Carden, Mark Jackman, Placer County Sheriff's Office. Here with the City of Colfax contract today. You want to wait so you can vote?
No, you're on a roll. Come on, move forward.
Specifically, I'm seeking your approval today for Amendment 3 of the contract with between Placer County Sheriff's Office and the City of Colfax to adjust the rate of the law enforcement services to $676,152 for the period of July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2019. Revenue from this contract is all included in our 18-19 submitted budget. A couple things briefly about the contract. This contract does represent an increase of 4.33% over the 17-18 contract. It's an increase of approximately 193 hours of FTE time in the city. And with that, any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Any questions about the contract with, Sheriff's contract with City of Colfax? Seeing none, anybody out there? Seeing none? It's been moved and seconded to approve item 11, Sheriff, Placer County Sheriff Office Law Enforcement Services Contract Amendment with the City of Colfax. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Giacomini.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
Now, Mr. Randall, we will take up your item again, and this is, it's been moved and seconded to approve this, the Brewer Road over Pleasant Grove Creek Bridge Replacement Project budget revision. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Duran, Wygant, Euler, Holmes.
Yes. The item is moved. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. And that concludes the items on our board. We will now go to a closed session. Mr. County Counsel, will you lead us into that?
The board will now adjourn to closed session for a conference with real property negotiators over acquisition in the Tahoe area.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
The board has returned from closed session where they had a conference with real property negotiators. They heard a report and gave direction to their real property negotiators. That concludes the closed session report.
And that concludes the business of the Board of Supervisors today.